Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. I've been meaning to watch that. I'm your host Monica. We're back again. New week, new topic, new guest like we do every single week. And today we have a very wonderful guest with us. This is someone that I've been following on TikTok for a while now. If you're someone who loves TV shows and movies, you should definitely check him out. He's recently been talking a lot about Severance and, doing some breakdown of some episodes and some characters, but overall, he's a really smart guy, very intelligent. He makes really awesome videos about movies, TV shows. He does a few sketches here and there, so I highly recommend you go check him out. And I want you guys to join me in welcoming our very illustrious guest, Destructo! Yeah, DestructoJuugo!
Hey guys, wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so glad the schedule's finally, matched because it's nothing I love more than talking about media with other intelligent people. So I'm just happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm so happy to have you. And guys, we're going to be talking about Amazon Prime's hit superhero show, Invincible. But before we get into Invincible, we're going to dive into our first segment of the podcast, which is Media Mania, where we talk about new releases and entertainment news. And today, I wanted to talk about this piece of news that I feel like a lot of people saw coming, but I feel like it would be interesting to dive into it. So, as we all know, the Snow White reboot is coming out fairly soon, starring Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot. It is a can't-miss project that Disney has been dreading to come out for the past 5 years, and there have been a lot of missteps in the wake of the release. The movie won't hit theaters until March 21st, but it looks like the team at Disney can't wait for the movie to come out and just be done with it. This is due to a lot of negative attention that Rachel Zegler has been getting since, honestly, the beginning of her career. If we're being honest, people are just like me to Rachel Zegler for no reason. But also, a lot of hate has been directed to Gal Gadot, who plays the evil queen in the movie, as many people have been questioning her own political alignment with Israel, as people found out that she was served in the IDF, which is required for Israeli citizens when you come of age. But a lot of people have been seeing that Snow White, the rollout for the film has not been desirable, has not been smooth, has not been something that Disney really wants to put a lot of money behind. So it looks like the massive marketing machine that Disney has placed behind this reboot is going to be coming to a halt fairly soon. And I was curious, Destructo, if you had seen anything about this, like the negative reactions to the movie, and like what were your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I actually love this because this intro because this is something I wanted to make a video about and I didn't really get around to it. But yeah, I wouldn't say I've been following this like super closely, but I am very, very active on Twitter. Will not be calling it X, and that's where I think a lot of this conversation has been going on about the Snow White controversy with Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot. And what I've always found interesting about this controversy is this is kind of the first movie that I've seen in a very long time where it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, you hate it.
Yeah.
It is like for all the people that are chronically online, whether that's like you're a conservative and you're chronically online or a leftist and you're chronically online, you have a reason to not want to watch this movie. When it comes to conservatives, it's obviously Rachel Zegler. She's made some comments that have really rubbed them the wrong way. I don't even remember off the top of my head what it is she said, but it's actually so easy to make conservatives hate you. And I saw somebody on Twitter actually say that it really just boils down to the fact that Rachel Zegler isn't the right type of white person. And I find so much truth in that because it really wasn't about anything she said per se. It's just they don't like her because she's not the right type of white. As far as Gal Gadot is concerned, this one is kind of interesting because there are two legitimately good reasons to not want to watch this film because she's in it. One, because she is a not just like an ex-IDF soldier, but a very strong proponent of Israel and a very big, activist for Israel throughout this genocide that's been going on and all the Israeli-Palestine conflicts that have been happening. And two, she's just fundamentally a terrible actor. And you can pick either of those reasons to not want to see her in this film. Personally, mine, I pick both. But yeah, this controversy is really funny because everybody has a reason to not like this film.
Yeah, you are right. And to your comment about Rachel Zegler, like why people don't like her, it's because I think when she first got casted in the movie, she said that the original was like very dated, and a
Oh
lot of people were
yeah.
like complaining online. They're worried that like Snow White's Disney's newest Snow White would be like too PC, and she was like, yeah, but we kind of need that because the original
Mm.
one is like problematic. That's essentially what she said. And also she's been very outspoken about like Trump supporters, especially around like the election that recently passed last year, like voicing her disdain for Trump supporters. And Rachel Zegler is of Colombian descent. I think she may be like half Colombian, half white. I'm not sure exactly because like I don't know her
Mm.
ancestry.com, but she is of Colombian descent. So you're right in saying like she's
Yeah.
the wrong white because Snow White is supposed to be like pure as snow, which
Yeah.
weird. But
Yeah.
those are some of the reasons why people don't like her. And honestly, like I feel like Rachel Zegler has been getting a lot of flack from the start of her career. It really started with
Mm.
West Side Story,
Yeah.
with Ansel Elgort, not
Yeah.
being included in a lot of the press because he
Yeah.
had allegations against him of sexual
Some serious
misconduct.
ones.
Yeah, some really bad ones, and because Rachel Zegler is the romantic lead opposite of him, I don't
Hmm.
remember exactly if she ever said anything or if she couldn't comment on it, but I do know that like a lot of people just started like calling her annoying or just saying rude things about her on Twitter following the release of that
Wow.
film. And it's because honestly, Rachel Zegler, I would say she's had a pretty good career so far. Like she was in West Side
Hmm.
Story before she was in the Hunger Games
Hunger Games
prequel.
prequel.
She
Yeah.
is in Snow White. Like she's in blockbusters. Like
Yeah.
she's making money. So
Hmm.
people being rude to her, like I can understand that could be difficult and hard. I've only seen her kind of really take it in stride and just speaking out against like online bullying and stuff like that. So I
Hmm.
personally I really do like Rachel Zegler, and I don't have any like qualms against her. I feel like she's a good actress. She's a really good singer.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot, not the strongest actress, I would say,
That's putting it nicely. That's putting it really nicely.
because I think the first time I watched her in a movie, I don't remember what movie it was, but it had Isla Fisher and Zach Galifianakis, and
Oh my God.
it wasn't Meet the Robinsons, but it was some kind of spy movie where like
Mm.
Zach Galifianakis and Isla Fisher are like a normal couple, and then Gal Gadot is with like not Henry Cavill but some other very handsome Hollywood man, and they
Mm.
become spies or like friends with this spy couple in some way. And I remember
Oh
watching that movie and being like, she's very pretty.
yeah.
Like she's gorgeous. She's gorgeous. And I saw her cast in Wonder Woman, and I was like, oh,
Hmm.
let me log off when this movie comes out because I don't want to be in the midst of the fray when people are
Wow.
talking about it. So with
You saw her early.
I know that's what happens when you watch so many movies. Like you see somebody in a
Mhm.
franchise film, you're like, I know you.
Yeah, I know you
I've
from somewhere.
seen you somewhere. So
That's crazy.
it is. And seeing Snow White and seeing both of them cast, I feel like I already kind of knew, like, we have made a huge misstep here because I get
Hmm.
it. They're two well known actresses. They're both in blockbuster films. You assume they're going to work well together. You
Yeah.
assumed wrong.
Yeah. I think part of it is also they're so diametrically opposed politically speaking. Like they're both very active about their politics, but it's just
Mm,
they're just their politics are almost opposite.
mm,
I believe Rachel Zegler has been like pro Palestine throughout this entire saga, and as we all know, Gal Gadot is very very serious about her love for her home country
mm,
and her support in all of her home country's actions. Um, and I always find that dichotomy really funny because I like to imagine what it's like on set. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and I don't like to be the type of person that speculates on these types of things, like, oh, behind the scenes drama. But I can imagine them being like besties
Right.
behind the scenes. They could have been, but I can't imagine it. And these things often have an effect on how the characters themselves are portrayed, how the performances, they sometimes, relationships between cast members bleed into performances. And so I have some sort of like a morbid curiosity in wanting to watch this film just to see how to see if I can detect any malice in there. You know what I mean? I think their chemistry from the trailers is terrible. I think it's really bad. I think a lot of that has to do with Gal Gadot being a terrible actor, but how much of that has to do with the fact that they just didn't mesh well? It's something to think about.
Yes. I do agree with you on that. And just thinking about like the film and really what it's going to be like when the movie comes out, it's very interesting to see Disney not put a lot of marketing behind this
Mhm.
movie in comparison to like The Little Mermaid or The Lion King or,
Yeah,
Beauty and the Beast. Whenever Disney has one of these remakes, it's coming because it's
hmm
everywhere. Even Mufasa had
yeah,
so much marketing behind it. And yet for Snow White, it was so quiet for so long that people thought that the movie was like shelved or that
yeah.
Disney canceled the movie.
I
And
did
then
too.
yeah, and I honestly whenever I see those articles like, "Oh, Disney did this," or like those articles are meant to be like clickbaity, like you have to prove your sources, guys. Like you can't believe everything you see on the internet. So,
Yeah,
obviously the movie is coming out at the end of March. And even though Disney has not been putting a lot of marketing behind it, there's a reason why they're making these remakes. They're successful, they're making money. The movie is
yeah.
on track to make around 50 million to
Opening weekend.
56 million opening weekend. Yeah.
Reasonable.
Which is a pretty good start to a remake, and it's just going to make more money. And I feel
Yeah.
like when, the press tour starts, it might be a tad awkward because press tours, as of recently, have just been
hmm
like, people have been trying to push these actors to make it seem like they're
Yeah.
all besties. I remember when Maxine, that film came out, there is this video series that Variety does where the cast asks their cast members questions about themselves. And there are some casts that did a really good job, like the Mean Girls cast, they did a great job. They all obviously knew each other, they all knew kind of each other's quirks. And like, Renee Rapp was like asking people, like, oh, what's my favorite song to sing at karaoke? And everyone was listening to all these amazing songs. She was like, oh, yeah, that's a good song, that's a good song. And it feels like they have really good chemistry. But then when you look at a video where it's like the cast of Maxine and Halsey
hmm
asked them, like, oh, name one of my albums. No one can name a single album. And Halsey's a multi-millionaire recording
hmm
artist. Like
Yeah.
she's a well-known recording artist. And the same thing
Yeah.
happened with The Boys. Like, I don't remember who it was, but they were asking their cast members a question, and everyone was so confused. Everyone was answering the wrong answer, and I was sitting there like, it's not that like they're not friends because like we can't assume that about people, but
hmm
obviously press tours like to push this kind of narrative that, oh, we all are in this movie together, we're all besties, we're all relatable, we're all cool with each other, when really like it could
Yeah.
just be celebrities showing up on set doing their
Yeah.
job.
One.
So if you have two actresses that are diametrically opposed politically and don't really like each other, like even when they're presenting at the Oscars, it's straight up
hmm
awkward. They literally just went out, said two sentences, and then presented it. They didn't do a
Yeah.
bit. They didn't do anything hee hee ha ha. They just got
Yeah.
straight to the point, and they
Right
were
to
barely
it.
even like standing next to each other. So
Yeah.
how are you
hmm
going to survive the
The
month long
press.
press tour you're supposed to be on?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those situations where, unfortunately, and Disney knows this, and this is why the marketing hasn't been super tight. It's doomed to fail, at least critically. Commercially, listen, these movies are going to make money. These remakes are going to make bread, and they're going to make money because all the live action Disney remakes fall into a category of film that I like to call coworker movies, and
Mm.
I started calling them that because ever since I started my job, I talk about films with my
Oh
coworkers,
yeah.
and they're not as well versed in the film space. They don't have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. These conversations,
Mm-hmm.
they see a trailer like Snow White, and they're like, "Oh my God, that looks so good! I can't wait to watch it."
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're not thinking about Gal Gadot's politics, Rachel
Mm-hmm.
Zegler's controversies. They're not thinking about they just like these remakes work. They work for a very large demographic of people who just don't really think too hard on the media that they consume. And so it's gonna make money. But critically, dude, this movie is fucked. Can we swear on here?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
dude, it's fucked. And it's kind of one of those like burning cars at the edge of the highway that you drive past that you just can't take your eyes off of. Is really how I'm seeing this. So I will be paying attention to the press tour interviews. I don't usually, but like those videos that like zoom in on the actors' faces when they ask their awkward questions, I'll be watching those just to see what happens. How about you?
I feel like for me personally, I do agree with your sentiment that like Snow White is like the coworker movies, because that's happened to me many times where I start telling people that I have a podcast about like movies and TV shows because people keep asking me for recommendations, or people would ask me my opinion about stuff. And you know, when you know a lot about something, you're gonna talk, but sometimes like maybe use big words and people just look at you like you can tell like they're listening, but at the same time their eyes kind of glaze over. So after a while, I'm just kind of like, oh, I really liked it. You know, this actor's very talented. I feel like it sent this really good message, and it was really solid. I gave it like a 9 out of 10. Like straight, wrap it up. Don't even go too deep into it. You know, but I have had people ask me for movie recommendations, and I'll be like, I remember once someone asked for a movie recommendation. I think it was like 2021 or 2022, and I was like, oh, there are a lot of good movies out right now. One I saw recently was If Beale Street Could Talk. I love it because it's like so soft, it's sentimental, and it's romantic, and it's very sweet. And I was like, but I may watch like Ralph Breaks the Internet, and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to see that movie so badly. And it's like, yeah,
that's what they responded to.
Yeah, so I totally get what you're saying. And one thing I think I'm hesitant towards when it comes to the press tour is like the body language experts that talk about like that watch people's interviews and are like, see, this actress hates this actress and this is why. Like, we don't need that for Snow White because we know, you know what I mean? But I feel like sometimes those videos are like do more harm than good, especially when like Captain Marvel came out and like people were ripping apart Brie Larson, and it was like, guys, you have to understand the only other franchise film she did before that was the King Kong movie, and even then I don't think it was at the scale of Captain Marvel.
It wasn't like a big sort of factory made, you know, in the same way that like the MCU is. It was actually like more of like a personal director's film, not like a huge, you know, big film franchise situation.
Yeah, so I feel like, you know, people just weren't receptive to how she was in interviews. So
yeah, I agree. Some actors have like dry senses of humor, or like I think a lot of us, we forget that these people are human beings, and some of them are better at the lights, camera, action of it all than others. You know, and some of them aren't. Like they're stars because their movies do well, because they're in big, you know, they paid well. But ultimately, a lot of these guys are just artists that, you know, happen to be really good at being actors. They're just regular people that happen to be really good at being actors. They can be awkward, they can be nervous, they can have anxieties, and the whole body language experts things and this and that. To your point on that, those exist only to like try to legitimize a preconceived narrative about the relationship between cast members on a film that we all already decided we hated. And for Captain Marvel, I was very excited to see that film, and that all of that hate was exclusively, objectively, and fundamentally misogyny. And you know, and so the hate came from the right wingers. But this one, you know, I'm also weary of like the body language experts that like are gonna watch Gal Gadot closely. You know, just because I don't like her, don't mean that it makes sense for us to pretend that because she might have been uncomfortable at a question, that means that she hates everybody in that room. Like, it could easily be that Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler are actually best friends in real life. That, like, who the hell knows? And so framing these narratives from like a pseudoscientific perspective, regardless of what direction that comes from, whether you're, right wing, left wing, whatever, is, I think, dangerous. And it's like way worse when they do it to women, because they do it to women way more. And that's a pitfall I'm trying to avoid, especially when discussing this film. And my dislike for Gal Gadot, I'm not trying to fall too deep into like if I'm using the same tactics as like the misogynistic, fascistic right wingers to discredit women actors that I dislike, then it's like, okay, I'm probably doing something wrong.
Yeah, but I think I do agree with you on that, and I do try not to fall into that pitfall as well, because I don't want to be like, I don't want to seem like, because there are some people, I don't know if you know, there's a movie reviewer or YouTuber, her first name is like Grace or something. And she's
Grace Randolph, oh my lord.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
know
try
her.
so hard to like toe the line when it comes to criticism and just being rude to people.
Yeah, yeah.
So I definitely, I remember I used to watch her videos when I was younger, and I was like, this is a lot for me.
Yeah, she does the most. I never watched any of her videos. I saw a clip of her on Twitter, and that's when I decided this is the worst person ever. It was when the Superman images were coming out, and they had done Mr. Terrific, and she was like, she was looking at the set photos of Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific, and she was like criticizing his hair. She was like, it's a little too political, a little too Black Power, a little too, Black Panther for me. I wouldn't have focused on the political as much. I would have just focused on making the character as cool as possible. I was like, oh, okay, she's racist. There we go.
Great.
And it sucks because sometimes she'll have good takes. Like, it's not like she's just immune to good takes. It's just that I was like, okay, that was the most racist thing you could have said about that.
Yeah, definitely. Oof, she's so annoying.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, but I feel like we're gonna have to wait and see what happens when Snow White comes out and see like the reception to it. Yes,
I agree.
And the next story I did want to talk about, because I was very excited when this came up on my, I don't know if this happens to you, on my Google app. It obviously recommends articles to you based off the stuff you like search. And I saw this article recommended to me from Google, which is an interview by Brian Tyree Henry. And I was like, absolutely, I'm going to read this article. And basically, Brian Tyree Henry, who is a very busy actor, is talking about, talking about how he is one of the busiest actors in Hollywood. Talking about how he had the breakout role of Paperboy in the FX show Atlanta, and how he has gone on to work with so many amazing directors as a result of that. And he's been nominated for 2 Primetime Emmy Awards, a Tony Award, and an Oscar. Yes. So I'm very, very proud of him, because he has a new show coming out called Dope Thief on Apple TV.
I saw episode 1.
Huh?
I saw episode 1 just the other day. It's really good. I
am actually very excited to watch it. I do plan on binging it, because I can't do weekly episodes. I'm doing that right now with Severance, and like it's killing me. Like, it's literally killing me having to wait. Yeah. So I'm very excited to see Dope Thief, starring Brian Tyree Henry and Wagner Moura, who was also in Narcos. He played
incredibly underrated actor.
Oh my god, he's so good. He was also in Civil War.
He was incredibly underrated performance. That was one of my favorite performances of the year.
Yes, great performance, not a great movie, but he was great.
Yeah, not a great film.
No, but I wanted to ask you, if you're also a fan of Brian Tyree Henry, because I feel like he is such a talented and busy actor, but I feel like there's so many. Yeah. Of course, there are so many actors in Hollywood, but like he's one of those people that you see him in so many things, and yet I don't feel like he's really got that like recognition.
Yeah, that's actually crazy to say that, because I fully agree. He occupies the space of being like within the industry of Hollywood, very well respected, very well, hardworking, always booked. But I think outside of the Hollywood industry, within this sort of like wider cultural space, he still like feels really overlooked. And I think it just has a lot to do with the fact that even though he's done a lot of projects, he hasn't done the projects that are like widely everybody's watching these, he's like, I think the project he did with the most mass appeal probably was either Bullet Train or Eternals, both of which he did incredible in.
Hmm.
Eternals flopped critically, commercially, but Bullet Train did well, I think, critically and did okay commercially. But I love Brian Tyree Henry. I never seen Atlanta actually, so my first
Really?
time seeing, no, I haven't. It's been on my list for forever. I think the first time I saw Brian Tyree Henry had to have been, geez, you're gonna laugh, but first I heard his voice in Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah. And then I saw him in uh, Bullet Train,
Hmm.
well, Eternals and Bullet Train.
Yeah.
And then I went and watched the first two episodes of Atlanta. I
Mm.
haven't gone through anything more than that. And so I've been kind of keeping up with his career more from a stance of like, oh, Brian Terry Henry's in this project. That's good for him. I'm glad he's in it. But like, it's not like actually watching it, but just being like, yeah, good for him, dude. I'm
Mm.
I'm happy for him. But yeah, I love him. I think he's great.
Yeah, it's so crazy that you haven't watched Atlanta because I feel like that show is like right up your alley.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard that.
to be honest, when Atlanta came out, it was kind of like it's
Hmm.
so interesting to talk about it because when Atlanta came out, it was one of those shows that people tweeted about and people were keeping
Yeah.
up on. Like the moments in the show were like being discussed live online. And I love those moments, especially when you're like keeping up with it because you get to see everybody's reaction to it, everyone's analysis, what people think about it. And
Hmm.
I loved the thing I love most about Atlanta is that like it's like, you know, it's like that jumping off point that some actors get. Like
Yeah.
from Atlanta, Donald Glover went on to do so many amazing projects. Zazie
Yeah.
Beetz was in a Marvel movie afterwards. Brian Tyree
Lakeith
Henry.
Stanfield.
Lakeith Stanfield literally blew up. He was in like three movies like in 1 year at one
Yeah.
point. It was actually
Mhm.
wild to see like how their careers the career
Took off.
trajectory from Atlanta for all four of them literally like took off like a rocket, especially for
Mhm.
Brian Terry Henry because he was on Broadway with Chris Evans. Like
Oh yeah.
he was worked with some like notable people. He's worked with Brad Pitt on Bullet
Yep.
Train.
Hmm.
He was in Into the Spider-Verse, so with like Shamik Moore, and Haley Steinfeld and Jake Johnson.
Hmm.
He was on Eternals, working with Chloe Zhao, who is an Oscar
Winning
winning,
director.
yes,
Hmm.
Academy Award winning director. And then
Hmm.
he was in Causeway, opposite of Jennifer Lawrence, who is an Academy Award winner, and he
Hmm.
himself became an Academy Award nominated
Award
actor
nominee.
because of it.
Yep.
And
Yeah, he's really well. He's doing really well.
he's doing amazing. And when you look at all of that put together, you have to think to yourself, like, why is it that more people don't know who he is? Like I think of
Hmm.
people like Tatiana Maslany, who I know from Orphan Black, which is a show that I
Hmm.
really loved. And then she was in She Hulk, the Marvel show. And then like
Oh yeah.
yes, and then also like America Ferrera, she's an actress that I've watched for most of my life and I've loved for so long. And when she was in
Hmm.
Barbie, so many people I guess like became aware of her, even though like I've been following her career since like Real Women Have Curves. So
Yeah.
it's always interesting to see like who who is keeping an eye on these actors and like who is
Yeah.
like noticing them and seeing like who they are
Hmm.
and like taking I don't know, just like being aware of their presence within like the Hollywood space because I feel like Brian Tyree
Yeah.
Henry has so much to offer, and it's strange to say that he's overlooked because we've listed all of his achievements,
Yeah.
and yet it still feels like he is overlooked in a way. It's the same way with like Sterling K. Brown. He's been acting for over 20 years, and Paradise
Forever.
is his first leading man role. You
Hmm.
know, so
Yeah.
Brian Tyree Henry, I'm waiting for his leading man role. I'm waiting for that
I think
moment.
I think there's a couple of things. First of all, the big thing I think is that there are just because there are so many more TV shows and movies being made now than there were before.
Hmm.
There are so many more big actors and actresses now than there were before. At least I think this is my theory. Um, because like you had the major studios back in the day that were making these films, and you had the couple big TV networks that were making these shows. But then you added streaming to the equation. You had every single streaming service producing their own films. You added independent film studios later on, like A24 and Neon, and you started sort of seeing this like huge increase in media that was coming out like within between like starting in like the 2010s, like mid 2010s, you know, moving forward. And so now I think we're at a point where there are so many actors that you kind of have to be locked into the acting, like locked into films and media from a genuine love to know who's doing what.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if you are, like I say, a coworker,
Right.
if you are like a regular person that is, you know, just thinks of these as casual forms of entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
your pool of media that you're consuming is a much smaller. So you're probably, you know, most people that watch movies aren't watching the Oscars. Most people that watch TV shows aren't watching the Emmys.
Yeah.
They're only watching the TV shows that they're commercially popular, that are at least critically popular enough that like everybody's hearing about them. And Brian Tyree Henry hasn't been in too many shows or films that I think have breached that threshold, that ceiling, because we know he's dope, and that person, you know, that has a Letterboxd account knows who he is and knows he's dope. But I promise you, your coworker don't even know who Brian Tyree Henry is. You got to be like the guy from the Bullet Train. Oh, Bullet Train! I love Bullet Train. Yeah, he was dope. You know, this is my theory.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. You are right because, like, for me personally, you're right because like there is a conversation. Okay, how can I say this? The conversation you have about movies with your coworkers is different than the conversation you have with someone who has a Letterboxd account. Like, I too have a Letterboxd account, obviously, but like I don't even update my Letterboxd account, which I should do more often. But like it's dormant. Like sometimes I update it a couple, like, you know, I add a couple other movies I've seen, and I don't even write reviews anymore because I'm just like, I mean, I like the movie. I'm putting the star in it. I'm logging it.
Same.
You
That's
guys know
it.
I watch movies. You know, that's it. But, you know, there are people who know so much about movies, understand film, know about actors, and, like, can list their whole filmography. And then there's your coworker that said, oh, I watched Red Notice on Netflix. Did you see that?
It was so good.
Oh, my gosh. Ryan Reynolds is so funny. You know,
Yeah.
like, he's hilarious. And The Rock, he's so cool.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot's so hot. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I really liked it. You know, like, they like shows like Manifest, and you know, if you tell, like, they all watch Manifest, which is like the most general show on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's like the most
So
random
generic.
show ever. And you know, if you tell them about a show that you like on there that may be like a little over their heads, like, oh, I really liked Black Doves, and they're like, oh, what's that about? Like, oh,
What's that about? Yeah.
yeah, it's like a British thriller about, you know, two friends and they have to like take down the government, blah 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 blah. They're like, oh, is there anyone in it that I know? It's like,
Yeah.
you have to.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot, but
Yeah, there's a huge disconnect. There is a
yes.
very vast disconnect between what film and TV lovers, you know, consider to be peak television and what general audiences. And I think the best example of that was last year with Shogun. Every person I know that like loves TV and film watched Shogun and was like, that is unequivocally the best TV show of the year, one of the greatest TV show like seasons of television. Is perfect. And I talked to people that, you know, it's not really their thing. Movies and TV shows like in that way aren't really their thing. And they're like, oh, I couldn't get through the first few episodes. It wasn't, you know, it was boring. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, I didn't think so, but I understand.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I can be the same way where I have to like be patient with myself. Like I have to tell myself like, you need to get through the first couple minutes of this movie in order for the action to start. Like, you know, there's a process to it. Like, I went to watch Conclave in theaters because I'm trying to watch more movies in theaters because I'm tired of being in the house all the time. And I went to go see Conclave, and, you know, the first 30 minutes or 45 minutes, there's not much happening. You really have to pay attention to what's going on so you understand what's going on because these people speak in riddles. So I'm watching and I'm like, you have to pay attention. We have to know what's up because, like,
Mm.
there's a strange brown man that they've locked in a room. We need to understand who he is, because
But
like
yeah.
this all comes into play. And I
Ah,
I totally get what you're saying about, like, what people may think about peak television or peak movies, because my brother and I, we watch anime, and
yeah.
he got me into anime just last year. So I've been watching a lot of it, and he is now watching One Piece, and he has finally got halfway through, and
Oh Lord.
he is just like, One Piece, or like the real people say, One Peak, and I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, One Piece is not peak, and he's like, yes, it is. I'm like, it's not. It's
Dude.
not
Yeah.
peak. And I love my brother so much, but, like, obviously he's like a young man. He watches a lot of
Yeah.
shonen anime, and I watch shonen anime too. I watch My Hero. I watch Kaiju
Yeah.
Number 8, Windbreaker. I've rewatched Demon Slayer, and I'm currently watching Solo Leveling. But I've also watched Fruit Baskets. Sign of
Right.
Affection. Apothecary Diaries. Because there's
Yeah.
more than one genre of anime. But if you're
Yeah.
someone who is like a casual watcher, what you're going to
Yeah.
watch is the top 10 anime, or like the most popular
Hmm.
one, or the one that's most poppin'.
Yeah.
You're not going
I agree.
to sit down and watch something like Apothecary Diaries, maybe,
Yeah,
or
you're not gonna watch the niche, hidden gems. You're gonna watch the big ones that everybody's talking about. Partially so you can be part of the conversation. I think that's
yeah.
that's another thing. We all like being part of conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and so we sort of gravitate towards movies that are that there's a big conversation around. I am just interested that you said though that. Um, Third, like Conclave was so slow for the first 30 minutes because I watched it at home,
Mm-hmm.
and as soon as it started I was like locked in, because bro, it's just they're so messy, and I love Ray Fiennes so much,
Yes.
that the Pope dies and they gotta elect a new Pope. Okay, and they're sneak dissing each other, and it's a power struggle, and I think I've always gravitated towards films and TV shows that are very political, that are all about maneuvering, that are all about watching what you say, and things of that nature. And I think that's part of it too. We gravitate towards the like we love the media that like we gravitate towards, and we gravitate towards the media that we like because I don't know, because we're all different. We all have different things that we enjoy, and different tastes,
Mm.
and that's fair.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. So, I'm very, very excited to see Dope Thief on Apple TV, because I've been trying to watch more Apple TV shows because I've been seeing this random $9.99 charge on my card. I'm like, what's this for? And I figured out it's for Apple TV. So I need to start watching what's on there
Yeah,
so I
get
can
your
get
bread's
my
worth.
money's worth.
Hmm.
Because I'm paying for too many streaming services, so I may as well use it. You
You
know?
and me both. I got too many.
Yeah, because the more shows Peacock starts putting on their shows, their streaming service, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna make me
Yeah,
go bankrupt.
yeah, facts. You watch Peacock is your main subscription service that you watch your shows on?
No, I don't have Peacock, but like the more shows they put on there, the more I'm like, I may have to get it because.
Oh, yeah, I have Peacock. It's reasonable.
Mm,
Uh, wh- there was that show that was nominated for a bunch of Emmys, and I couldn't even finish the first season because it was so boring. It was called. It starred the guy from The Theory of Everything. What was his Eddie Redmayne? It was called
what was
The
that?
Jackal, The Day of the Jackal, or
The
something
Day of
like
the
that.
Jackal. I did see that. I was thinking about watching that just because I saw Lashana Lynch in it, and I was like, I may watch it. And I think I also wanted to watch it because, like, there's also another show that they're premiering
Mhm.
with. Wow, not me forgetting her name. It was the actress from How to Get Away with Murder. She's on the
Mm.
show. It's like a
Oh,
gossipy, like Desperate Housewives kind of show.
are we talking about the Viola Davis?
No, like, no, the other
Oh,
actress who was on How to Get Away with Murder. Have you seen
oh.
How to Get Away with Murder?
No, I haven't. That's why my mind immediately went to Viola Davis.
Okay, there's another show that Peacock is adding that's like Desperate
Mhm.
Housewives, Garden Club,
Oh, yuck.
something, and there's also Poker Face. Obviously, like
Hmm.
I watched a couple episodes of that, and I really did enjoy it. But I watched it on my friend's account, which I don't have access to anymore. So
Mm.
I
Fair enough.
I've been debating about whether or not to get Peacock, but I don't think there's enough on there that it warrants
Yeah,
me
there's
getting
not much.
it.
There's really not much on there. I mean, yeah, it's not a whole lot.
Okay. Well, you know what? Best of luck to Brian Terry Henry. Very excited for Dope Thief. That's coming out soon at Apple TV. And that's going to wrap up Media Mania. So we're going to jump right in to the meat and potatoes of the podcast and start talking about Invincible. So for
Mhm.
those who don't know, I don't know why you wouldn't know because why are you listening to this podcast? But Invincible is a Amazon Prime series that was adapted by a comic book written by Robert Kirkman, and he
Mhm.
collaborated with Corey Walker and Ryan Ottley on the artwork of this comic book. It is well known for its graphic violence and very colorful visuals, and this comic book has had several spin-off series from it, but it was adapted into an animated series on Amazon Prime Video March 25th, 2021. That is when it premiered. It is a critically acclaimed show. It is currently in its third season, actually finished its third season very recently, and fourth season has been confirmed. The show is incredibly popular due to its subversion of superhero tropes and complex character relationships, and we're going to be diving in to seasons 1, 2, and 3 and giving our thoughts and opinions on the show. And
Woohoo.
Destructor, I did want to ask you because I feel like
Mhm.
there are a lot of shows out now that are like subverting the superhero trope, obviously due to the
Yeah, so
rise in
many.
popularity of Marvel Studios and subsequently the DCEU. So I
Mhm.
wanted to get your like first. What were your first initial thoughts when you started watching Invincible?
Um, okay, so yeah, I believe it or not, I read the comics as a kid. I grew up on these comics, and I say that to say because I'm not much of a comic reader at all. Like I have not read very many comics in my life. I've read the major like Marvel, events, Civil War, Annihilation, things of that nature, but I did read the Invincible series front to back. When I was young and as the issues were coming out, and so it was always my favorite comic book series ever. And when I found out that they were adapting it into a TV series, I was ecstatic because I was like, the world is going to see that this is one of the best superhero stories ever told. And so when the show came out, um, dude, it was the happiest day of my life. Not even gonna lie to you, because it was so good. I was so vindicated in the fact that not only did they adapt the story that I thought was one of the best superhero stories I'd ever seen, but they adapted it so well that it became one of the best comic book to TV show adaptations of all time, period. There are so many things that the show changes from the original comics. There's so many characters that they change. There's so many events that they rework to like tell a better narrative that just are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as far as subverting the superhero trope, I think Invincible does it probably better than any other superhero TV show out there right now, including The Boys. I know there are a lot of fans of The Boys. My problem with The Boys is that it was too cynical about the concept of superheroes, cynical to the point of being unrealistic. Right? It
Mm-hmm.
always felt like, come on now, this is no less realistic or no more realistic than the DC universe in terms of how superheroes act. I refuse to believe that every single superhero is objectively the worst person on earth. Like there has to
Yeah.
be some sort of middle ground. And I felt like that's where Invincible really flourished, especially as a TV series, because it was very real about the struggles of what it is to be a superhero in a modern world, even though the modern world that they live in is so fantastical and so unlike ours.
Mm-hmm.
The themes were explored in ways that I felt really resonated more with the idea of the fact that like it's a gray world. It presents a sort of grayness that is truly gray, and as opposed to like what I think The Boys does is presents like the blackness of
Mm-hmm.
it, as opposed to like the MCU's whiteness. But that's my general thoughts. What do you think?
I have to agree with you on that because I do also agree that The Boys does tend to be a lot darker and grittier. And I know that Invincible and The Boys are similar in the way that the shows are not as gritty as the material that they are adapted from. I understand that
Mhm,
like for the shows, like especially Eric Kripke has talked about it with The Boys, there are some things
mhm,
that happens in The Boys that they do not include into the show, just to
mhm,
like keep some levity to it and everything. And I'm grateful
Yeah.
that there are some things in Invincible that they do not adapt to the show. And I think,
Yeah.
like, from because I haven't had the opportunity to read the Invincible comics,
Mm,
but from what I've seen of the show, it's very clear to me that, like, it takes the fact that, like, these are superheroes, these are superpowered people. The strength that they have and the power that they have is something that goes beyond, like, the scope of what we understand as humans and how we could possibly harm each other. So there is
mm,
going to be, like, a lot of action, there's a lot of gore, there's violence. There are things that, sometimes it feels like it's going too far, but when you have to take into account, like, realistically how someone who is, like, half human, half Viltrumite, which is one of the most powerful aliens in the galaxy. Of
mm.
course, Invincible is going to be very strong, very powerful, and of course, his father, in turn, will be a lot more powerful than he is. So I
Yeah.
love that about the show, and I also like that the show, paints Mark as kind of like, obviously, like, this humanitarian in a way. He is like the idealistic protagonist, in the same
Mm.
way that we have Spider-Man, the same way that, like, if you, like, watch anime, you have Izuku Midoriya, Tanjiro
Yeah.
from Demon Slayer, like, you
Naruto.
Naruto, exactly. Like, you have the kind-hearted, idealistic MC who, of
Mm,
course, takes the mission on their life very seriously, but they're not going to go down the path of, like, harming people without
mm.
there being a reason behind it, and not even wanting to harm people at all, but finding some other solution besides that. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's something I really enjoyed about Invincible.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you say that because he really is like an anime MC.
Yeah.
Like he has like all the tenets of an anime MC. He's got like the plot twist where you find out like he's related to a super powerful, sometimes like I'm thinking of Naruto, like
Hmm.
super powerful being. He's destined for one thing and he has to subvert his destiny. There are a lot of tropes in there that feel and archetypical to the hero's journey in Invincible. And that's what I think I really love about how this show does the storytelling is that it takes that hero's journey, the Luke Skywalkers of the world, the Narutos, the Midoriyas, and it places them in sort of a real world context and adds in a lot of layers and depth and a lot more nuance and a lot more emotion,
Hmm.
because he is all and many things at once. He is a superhero. He is half Viltrumite, half of partially meant to subjugate the entire human race, but he's also a kid. He's also a student. He's also a friend. He's also a boyfriend. And these are all things, these are all identities that he has to juggle at once. And I think Invincible right now is, and this is going to be like a crazy hot take, but I think Invincible right now is like our modern, like Spider-Man story,
Mm.
you know? And I think it's just as impactful and just as important for this era of comic book history, as Spider-Man was originally when he was introduced, because he feels so relatable, because he has so many real world struggles. And I think that's really dope. I think it will be remembered as one of the best like superhero TV shows ever, XYZ.
Yeah, I do. I think that that's not so much of a hot take. I do kind of agree with you on, like, what you're saying about him being the modern day Spider-Man. I do want to kind of, like, get into, like, season one of it
Mm-hmm.
all, because I think season one is such a strong opening, episode
Yeah.
one. Because when I started rewatching the show, I had to think back to when there's nothing like the experience when you're watching a show for the first time and you don't really know what you're getting. You're just kind of like going with it, and then something happens
Mm-hmm.
in the show, and you're like, "Oh, so we're here now." So that happened,
Mm-hmm.
and rewatching Invincible season one and watching Omni-Man kill the Guardians of the Globe, like
Yeah.
it's nothing. Rewatching it, I'm like, when that first happened, I literally was just like gripping my seat, like my desk chair, and I was like, "This
Yeah.
can't be happening." You're like, "Sir,
Yeah.
you're the leader." It's like watching Iron Man kill the Avengers. It's like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? He must be. He has a few marbles loose in here, because
That's a really big,
Yes.
yeah.
So,
I agree. I really wish, and
mhm.
this is one of the things, like, I wish sometimes I wish I never read the comics so I could like experience, the show in the purest way that people who didn't read the comics, because obviously, like, that's what happened. It's exactly what happens in the comics, and it happens even quicker in the comics than it does in the show. Like, it's literally like within the first few, I don't want to say pages, but it's within like first like 10 pages. He like,
Mhm.
and not only that, but there's not even like an actual power struggle. Like, he kills them all instantly. Most of them don't even realize what was going on. It's actually only Immortal that knows it was Omni-Man that turned against them. So there's no like emotional stakes because they all died without even realizing who it was.
Mm.
Um, but the show does it so well, and I knew it was coming, and it was still impactful, but it was really cool because that's not something that most people have ever seen before. Like, that's mind-blowing. It was certainly mind-blowing when I read it. Like, I was like, shit, just the type of shit I'm reading. Yeah, I love that you thought of it that way, because it really was that, like, it really was that crazy.
Yeah, I am glad that they really kind of like not drew it out, but they did the scene in a way where effectively it destabilizes familiar superhero tropes, and
Mhm.
it basically the show is just letting us know that like the show that you're watching, this is not like the other shows you watch. All right,
Yeah.
this is not Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This is not WandaVision. Okay, we're not those girls. And I love that the show is willing to just like defy people's expectations and to show that like, listen, we don't care. This is Amazon Prime. Like, you're gonna see
Yeah.
blood, you're gonna see guts, you're gonna see all of that.
Yeah.
And I think that another thing about it is seeing Omni Man kill off all of his coworkers, essentially, like all of his friends, his like family,
Yeah.
these people that are meant to protect the globe, and leaving himself as the sole survivor. Which I'm not gonna lie, if I was an everyday citizen, I wouldn't be surprised because Omni Man is Omni Man. He's like this. He's like that universe's Superman, so it would be
Mhm.
hard to take him down. Now, if
Yeah.
I was being honest, I would think like, oh, the Immortal, you can't kill him because he's literally called
The
the
Immortal.
Immortal. So like in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm not sure he's gone, 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 but like let's pretend that he is. But I think it was quite it shook me. It shook me, but I like the unraveling of Omni-Man's true nature. Seeing
Mhm.
the kind of back and forth of like him killing all the Guardians of the Globe and then him playing catch with his son. Him being someone who is hiding this terrible secret and then watching
Yeah.
all the subtle clues because it is the greatest form of dramatic irony that the
Yeah.
audience knows that Mark Grayson's father is actually a terrible person, not a hero at all. And then seeing how brutally he is training his son, it's like,
Yeah.
no, I know he's trying to push him, but like, y'all don't know this man is off his rocker.
Yeah.
Like,
It's psychotic.
he is psychotic. He's not okay. Like how he's
Um,
dismissive towards humanity, how brutal
yeah.
he is in the training. It obviously comes from like his experience as a hero, but also it's like,
Yeah.
what's up?
Yeah. That's something season one does so well,
Mm-hmm.
dude. When I say it expands on the comics, it really does, because we didn't get on any of that juicy shit in the comics. In the season one, um, after watching, Omni Man murder all those people, murder his coworkers, everything he does afterwards makes so much sense
Yep.
in within that context. He is dismissive and like rude to human beings. Like, when he gets out of the hospital, he's like, "My suit, I want it now." And
Mm-hmm.
then Deborah's like, "Yo, what the fuck?" And, and like you see him start to lose a lot of that composure and a lot of that humanity that he has in the first episode. He starts the first episode saving the Guardians of the Globe from, the Mauler twins or whatever. And he's like a really nice guy. I'm like, great, great dude, great dad, really cool, really chill. And then as the season carries on, he gets darker and darker. And, when he reveals the reason he's truly on Earth, it
Mm.
begins to make so much sense, because it was an act the whole time. And that act was still slowly starting to slip away. He was slowly starting to lose that performance. And it's just the tension that is built up in every scene that he's in, from episode one to the finale of season one,
Mm.
is palpable. and it's a consistent tension that is like continuously built upon every scene that he's in, and it's just some great storytelling.
Yeah, it's phenomenal storytelling. And when watching Mark and his journey to becoming a hero, also like I feel for Mark that he's like in high school and he's a hero and he's trying to like live his normal life, and at the same time he has to go about saving people. You know, it's not something that's like easy for him, especially when he's juggling school and like juggling friends and juggling like a new girlfriend. It's very difficult, and I think that season one does like such a good job of just like establishing Mark, who he is, the world of Invincible, and also the like characters of Invincible, like Teen Team turning
Hmm.
into like the Guardians of the Globe, which I thought was like that's a little fast, don't you think? And in my head, I'm
Yeah,
like, y'all don't have
they're not
anybody
good enough.
else to
Yeah,
take
I
up
was like,
Invincible.
they're not nice enough to be the replacement.
I'm
They're
like,
a guy that throws bombs. What are we
yeah.
talking about here?
I was looking, I was like, this cannot be what we're working
Yeah.
with. I'm like, Cecil, you must have a Rolodex of heroes. Like,
Hmm.
you can't. It could have been the Guardians of the Globe that were the only people that can answer the call every single time. But, like, you know, this happens in almost every show I watch where, like, you know, people have powers. You know, when it's like young people, they're just like, oh, well, we can go ahead and do this thing where you may die. You know, you'll be
Yeah.
perfectly fine. You know, it's like, no, they're children. They should not be here.
Yeah.
They should be at the
They are children.
park. You know,
The park.
but
Yeah.
watching Mark take on like this huge responsibility of being a hero, you know, from even like his first mission of those, I don't remember the name of the aliens, but they came through the portal and they were like
Of-
aging like milk. And
They
then,
weren't Flaxens, were they?
hmm?
Were they Flaxens? I
I
think
think
they
the
were Flaxens.
Flaxens, yeah.
Yeah, the Flaxens.
And then they came back a couple of days later and they're like, oh, we learned how to survive in your air. So now we about to mess it
Yeah, we
up.
went to lock in.
And then them having to like take them down, like watching that go down. Honestly, watching Mark have to like actually work at being a hero, I feel like
Hmm.
is so interesting because people are so used to superheroes just taking it easy during a fight.
Yeah,
Like, oh, they have one
yeah,
bad fight, but like the second fight, they're in it. They're there. Like they're
yeah. They're
taking them
locked
down.
in.
Yes, but then watching your heroes get beat up and beat down by these aliens, it's like, oof,
Hmm. Yeah,
yikes.
it was a play on. I love the show. His name, his title is a play on the fact that he's actually always getting his ass beat, and he's in fact not invincible.
Not at all. I mean, like he hasn't died yet, but like he's not.
It's come too close.
Yes, every single
Hmm.
time. In fact,
Yeah.
I did want to get your opinion. Okay, on like Mark and his dad, because even though like season one of not Supernatural, sorry, I don't know why I said Supernatural. That was just season one of Invincible. It has a lot of great elements, a lot of key moments, and seeing Mark's journey into like super heroism and his struggle to find his identity is something that I found to be very interesting. Do you think that Mark could have really become invincible without his dad having that crash out?
Ooh, that is that having that crash out. Um,
A nice way of putting
damn.
it.
Yeah, I know, right? I think, I think, you know, part of the Invincible lore, or at the very least, like part of what I think the theme is like being made stronger through adversity.
Mm,
And I think that's really just in the sense that like if his dad was actually the good guy that he pretended to be, his dad, I don't think that Mark would have become the Invincible that we know, right?
mm,
He would have always had Omni-Man over there to, to handle any big bad that was trying to mess up the Earth. I think, his decision to become invincible and his journey as invincible is 100% shaped and informed by that big event where he has to fight his dad, but also all the other events, following that, where Omni-Man is off planet and he's now the only person on Earth capable of handling the biggest threats. That all of that was thrust on him far before he was ready, right? I think that's a major point in his character. And like I said, that's another aspect of the hero's journey that is archetypical that they talk about. So no, I don't think he could have been the Invincible that we know. He was like a superhero, but he would have been like okay. Like he would have been like he would have been like okay as a
Mm-hmm.
superhero as opposed to like the Invincible that is out here really handling business.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. And I think that with Mark having to deal with his dad, you know, being the villain essentially, and him learning that his dad is not who he was pretending to be, is definitely tough.
Mhm.
But you're right, it is part of the hero journey. Like, there is this quote that I used to see on Tumblr all the time. It's like, show me a hero and I'll show you a tragedy. Like,
Mhm.
no hero has an easy life. Every
Yeah,
hero in like literature, in history, in any form of media has to go through something incredibly traumatic in order
yeah,
to really come into their own and be the person that we need them to be. Like,
hmm
you could pull a number of like main characters from different like movies and TV shows, and you'll see like how they got to where they are was through like terrible things happening to them that were completely out of their control. And
yeah,
it really is like who you become out of adversity that makes you the hero that you have to be so that you can finally like live up to your name. And living up to the name of Invincible is a very tall feat. And for the second
yeah,
he gave himself that name Invincible, I was like, bro, you signed your
yeah.
death warrant. Why are we doing this? Like, you could have been anybody else. You could have just been
Yeah,
you could have been Grayson. Like, that could have been your
yeah.
name. It could have been something different. But like, okay,
You could have been Punch Guy. I don't know. You could have been
I don't even know. But
Flying
like,
Man.
Invincible was just like,
Yeah, I
you're
agree.
buying the cart before the horse. You
Yeah,
know,
the curve.
you're
I
biting
agree.
off a little too much, a little more than you could chew. Mark
Yeah, he
Grayson.
was doing the most, and it speaks to his naivete,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really what it is because he gets on there thinking, hey, this superhero life is sweet. My dad, what I'm saying, is the strongest person on earth. Um, he's never worried about nothing, and even like when before he becomes invincible, before he gets his powers, and their dad, like Omni-Man, gets stuck on that different alternate dimension for like 2 weeks. He's not worried at all. He's like, shit, my dad's got it, bro. He'll be back soon.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't even tripping, because I think he sort of romanticized what it was to be a superhero. He didn't really, because you're a kid, you look up to your dad. Your dad's actually invincible.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this romantic idea of being a superhero, of getting powers like him, of always saving the day and coming back without a scratch. And so he gives himself a dumbass name when he gets the chance. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
like that. I'm invincible. It speaks to like, and this is another thing that I've always really liked about the name Invincible and what it means for the story, because he's a young kid. He's just about to graduate high school. Um, they say that this is the zenith of his youth, of your youth when you're at that age, 17, 18. And what do old people always say about teenagers? They think they're invincible. Oh
Yep.
my gosh, I hear it all the time. It's like, oh, you teenagers, you think you're invincible? On God, we do. um, and yeah, he did, and he decided to choose that for his name.
Yeah.
And he learned. He learned quickly.
Yeah, and I was thinking what you said, how like, kids see their dad is invincible. It's one thing when it's like you're a normal human being and like your dad can
Mhm.
like build you a dresser from like a pile of wood. You're like, oh my gosh, my dad can do anything. It's
Yeah.
different when your dad is literally a superhero that everybody calls upon at the drop of a hat when things go wrong. Like, your dad is
hmm
literally invincible. But of
Yeah.
course, Mark romanticizes the fact that his dad is like so powerful. He doesn't even like take the time to think about like what is that power and what does that do to a person if you're that powerful.
Yeah.
Like, how do they truly view someone who is just a human being and doesn't measure
hmm
up to their power? Because when his
hmm
dad basically leaves to go to like the Flaxen's planet, he goes there to commit a genocide. And when
Yeah.
he comes back, he says something just like so casual and cavalier. I don't remember what he said, but it's the way that he said it. Like, he's done
hmm
this before. And then
hmm
upon rewatching it, I had to sit back in my chair and be like, how many times has he done this? How many times have you gone to a planet and just wiped everybody out because they're a problem on Earth? That's how you
Yeah.
protect Earth? You just kill everybody on that
Everybody.
planet so you don't have a problem, an issue?
That's crazy. I never thought of it like that, bro. Yeah, you're absolutely right because on God, he's done that multiple times before. On God, that's how he solves problems. It's ultimate violence with
And
him.
And Cecil knows. Cecil knows
Oh.
everything that's going on. And it's
Mhm.
crazy to me because, like, when Debbie goes to Cecil and she's like, oh, Nolan killed the Guardians. He's like, I know. And she's
He's
like,
like, duh.
and she's like, you knew? And he was like, yeah, yeah, girl, I knew. How could I
Day
not
one.
know? I read this. Like,
That's what I love. I love Cecil so much, man. He's never misses a step, bro. He knows everything about everything.
yeah. And I do feel for Debbie because when she first found out that Nolan was like obviously the villain,
Hmm.
I was like, oh no, they're gonna kill her. They're gonna kill Mark's.
Yeah.
They're gonna kill Mark's mom. Here it goes. Because of course,
Oh.
me having watched too much TV have been burned. Because whenever you have, the male MCs, you know what they like to do? They like to
Yeah,
kill off the female characters because you need to give
they
the
do
men some
indeed.
kind of motivation. Okay, I was like, the
Hmm.
fridging is an act. It's about to happen. Everybody, hold on. And when she didn't die, I was like, oh, what a pleasant surprise. I'm so
Yeah,
like I'm so grateful because like I
yeah.
accidentally mentioned before, I watched Supernatural. If anybody's listening and watched Supernatural before, you already know what I'm talking about. But they introduced a
Girl, I
female.
love Supernatural. They introduced a female character, they kill her. They kill her.
She's not
It was
lasting the
that girl.
season.
What was that one girl that went to Oz? She like what was it, like season
Charlie,
9 or 8? Ah,
Charlie
poor
Bradbury.
poor girl. Poor girl.
They left her in a
Damn.
hotel room by herself with a tiny little knife. How does that make sense?
Yeah,
How does
they
that make
they
sense?
they're wrong for that, man. They're so wrong, bro.
They
And their mom. Don't even get me started on Supernatural. That's a whole other can of worms.
right, right. But okay, so the ending of season 1,
Hmm.
when Omni-Man decides to teach Mark a lesson and
Yeah,
proceeds to kill a whole bunch of people in
yeah,
Chicago. And at the end of
yes.
it, I'm not going to lie, at that end, I really didn't know where else
Mhm.
they were going to go. Because when he
Yeah,
stopped and he didn't kill Mark, because, like, in the back of my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to kill the main character? Because the whole
yeah.
time I'm watching Invincible, the first time I'm watching Invincible, it's already giving you the vibe of like, don't get attached to these people. All right. We
Hmm.
are about that violence. We're about that action, which means these
Hmm.
characters are not long for this story. So don't
Yeah.
get too attached because they may be gone. Which is why
Hmm.
at every interaction someone has with Omni Man where they piss him off, I'm just like, don't say nothing else. Keep your mouth closed. You don't know
Facts.
who he
That
is.
ass. He about to pop off, bro. Please just play nice.
And when he's going up against Immortal, because the Immortal, wasn't dead, and he decided to fight
Yeah.
him again, and Omni Man literally ripped him apart, I was like, oh,
Yeah,
Mark,
this is he
we
is.
gotta go. We have to
Yeah.
run, Mark. And he did
We
not
have to
go.
run.
And he proceeds to completely traumatize his son and me as well, especially with
Hmm.
that train scene. Because,
Oh,
sir,
yeah.
now
That
we're
train
doing too
scene.
much.
That train. Let me tell you something.
Mm.
Let me tell you something. That train scene does not exist in the comics. It doesn't. It's not from the comics. That
Listen,
fight.
let's have some fun. Let's do
No,
something
that
new.
ass. They're trying to hurt our feelings. Because I was shocked. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? Imagine my surprise seeing because in the comic books they fight. It happens much very similar to how it does in the episode. But a lot of those deaths are caused by collateral damage.
Mm.
A lot of the innocents killed are caused by collateral damage. Omni-Man in the comic books does not go out of his way to murder people.
Mm.
Then you have the train scene, the infamous train scene. Wow. I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
Mm.
It was unreal. I knew it was time for Mark to run when Cecil teleported over to Omni-Man, and without skipping a beat, Omni-Man went for his throat like it was nothing.
Mm.
I said, oh, you known this man 20 years? He was ready to crush his throat.
Wow.
You're the devil. Yeah,
Incarnate.
it's like actually you're Satan.
Yes.
It was a great episode. I think you're making me because I haven't seen season 1 since it came out, but you're making me remember that I think season 1 is still probably my favorite season of the series because it's
Mm-hmm.
just so well contained. It's just
Mm-hmm.
so great from start to finish.
Yeah. And I have to agree with you on that because I think season 1 does a good job of, obviously
Mhm.
introducing Mark, Debbie, Nolan, but also all the side characters of William, Adam, Eve, Amber, Cecil,
Yeah.
Donald, and really understanding like who these people are, how they're integrated into, not even Nolan's life, but Mark's life, because Mark knows
Yeah.
Cecil. And he knows
Yeah.
Donald somewhat. Debbie knows Donald and Cecil as well. So the
Yeah.
fact that like there are these people that they've known their whole life and like are practically family because of how close they were with Nolan, and now they find out that Nolan is like terrible, and now they also have to find out that you knew my dad was like this, and you
Yeah.
didn't think to tell anybody, and now I'm
Yeah.
covered in my blood. Like
Yeah.
I'm looking messed up right now.
I'm looking
And
crazy.
you could have stopped this. I like they could have stopped it, but like you could have. We could have some forewarning, foreshadowing, something.
Yeah, but I mean, it was really, and that's kind of crazy because it's like dead ass. There was nothing anybody could do about Omni-Man. Like there wasn't anything anyone, and the show does such a great job of capturing that like genuine fear, especially in that final episode where Omni-Man was just off his fucking rocker, and he's talking to William. He's like, "Where's Mark?" And I'm like, "Oh, nobody can get him off that. No one here can hang with him." So I'm scared for every character that Omni-Man is interacting with those last 3 episodes, because I'm like, if he decides to tweak out right now, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it?
Okay.
So not a damn thing. So I feel for Cecil. I really did, because he knew that Omni-Man was psycho, but it's like, okay, where do we go from here? I can't get him off that. And tell people, so what can happen? So we can all be panicking. I don't know. He's got a hard job.
Yeah. But going into season 2, I was definitely nervous, very nervous, because ending of season 1, he's pummeling into his son Nolan. He's like, I'm coming back with my empire. Like when I come back, you better be ready. Okay?
Yeah.
Because this was nothing. This was easy. This was light work. So now we're kind of getting Mark, in his sad boy era, obviously, because his dad just like destroyed the world. And I'm not going to lie, season 1, I was low-key thinking like, why didn't you just tell people he was a hero? Because me, I can't keep secrets. I feel like if I was a superhero, I'd just tell people, I'd be like, hey, this is my power. This is what I can do. Leave me alone afterwards. But like, I understand now why he didn't tell anybody, because imagine if people knew that his dad did that. Of course, they would automatically assume that, like, oh, he's like,
evil too.
Yeah, like he's bad. And I don't know if people know that Omni-Man is Invincible's father. I don't think they know that in the universe, but like, obviously, because they saw Invincible with Omni-Man when he was going through Chicago and going through that rampage. Like, they're like,
I'm pretty sure they do, because like everybody was hearing. Yeah, I'm almost certain that they know Omni-Man is Invincible's father. They don't know that Mark is Invincible and that Nolan was Omni-Man, but they do know that 2 superheroes are father and son, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I don't remember how I know that, but I think that's true.
Okay, that makes sense. But as we go into season 2 and expanding upon the universe, which I'm gonna be real, like, whenever I'm watching a show, I always want the second season to be better than the first season. Because, of course, the first season, you're laying down the groundwork, you're introducing the characters, you're getting to know the world. We're just, like, getting a taste. Season 2 is when you expand upon everything that people already know. And you can't expand upon it too much. Otherwise, you kind of lose the plot. So you need to expand upon it in a way where people understand, like, the stakes are higher, but we're not going to get lost in all of that. Like, we're still keeping the story grounded in a way. And I think that the show does a good job of staying grounded, but I feel like season 2, when I was watching it, because I was binging it, I didn't mind that season 2, like, kind of goes into season 3, because obviously, like, I know season 3, like, is coming, but I feel like when I was watching season 2, when I first watched it, and, you get to the end, you're like, oh, that's it?
Yeah.
I don't know if you felt that way, but I remember finishing it and I was like, oh, so we're here now.
Yeah, okay. I agree. And it's because, and I knew this was going to happen as soon as they announced that it was going to be a TV series, because the comic books, they're very linear. They don't, the story is so linear that it doesn't really make space for like neat little seasons. So I knew the first challenge of adapting this into like a serialized a season by season TV series would be like figuring out where do we take the breaks, where do we cut it and say this is the end of season one and this is the beginning of season two, because these stories, it's like everything. There are very few time skips. There's only like one or two time skips, and they happen way later on in the series. And so everything that happens to Mark, you're almost watching like day by day. Like,
Mm-hmm.
today he's fighting Omni-Man. Tomorrow he's resting for a few days. Then he's fighting the Mauler twins. Then he's doing this. Then he's doing that. Like, that's kind of how his story goes. So yeah, I fully understand why people felt like it was just a little bit like jarring that they just sort of cut it there, because I mean that's the best they could do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that, and I think that
Mhm.
with the start of season two, I'm glad that there is at least like a continuation for like some of the side characters that we see, like Sinclair from season one, who was like
Mhm.
turning people into robots, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
and we see that Cecil has employed him now into the
Yeah.
CDA, which questionable, but I'm not the head. I'm not gonna judge. You know what I mean? And then we
Mhm.
have Titan, who collaborated with Mark to take down Machine Head, and then thusly took
Mhm.
Machine Head's place in the organization. Which I understand why Mark was upset by that, but like also Mark, you don't get it. Like it's rough out here, okay? Homie needed
Yeah.
a job. He got a job. Like we can't all stick to your morals and ideals. You are
Yeah.
17 years old, okay? You don't have bills. He has a wife and a child. It's
Yeah.
he's doing the best with what he got.
Yeah.
So I definitely was just kind of like, I'm gonna let him breathe. But going to season two, we do see like Mark having to deal with the trauma of his dad leaving and completely destroying Chicago, and now people having a mistrust in Invincible because they saw him with Omni-Man. So people can't help but think that like he
Mhm.
was somehow in collaboration with Omni-Man because that's his dad. So people are wary of him. They're not very trustworthy of him, and he's just trying to do his best to show people that he's a good guy. And he's not a nice guy when people say like, "Oh, I'm a nice guy," and they're kind of like a dick. Like he's actually a
Yeah.
good person, you know. And it's
Yeah.
tough to see him who is like used to be like so optimistic and like kind to someone being so run down and
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah. His transformation is really kind of shitty. I was like,
It's
damn, one
rough.
man's took a break.
Mm.
He really couldn't.
Yeah, he couldn't catch any kind of break. And I did want to ask, what do you think of Inkston Levi? Is that his name?
Oh, Extreme Levy.
Inkston
Yeah.
Levy.
There's so much going on in this series that I like, bro. It's like 50 different villains. Like,
That's what I like. I like that there are
yeah,
different villains because you don't need just one bad guy. Like
you
we
don't.
need to have moving parts. We need to have things
Facts.
happening because that's how it happens in the real world. Like you feel like there's one
Exactly.
thing happening and then something else goes wrong. So it
Hmm.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
As far as Extreme Levy, I can't lie to you. I didn't like his character that much when I read the comics. I like him slightly more in the series, even though it's not that much.
Hmm.
His storylines are not my favorite. Um, but I really do, and this is in season three, and obviously we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I really did love the multiple marks. What is it called? The War of the Marks. I thought that storyline was fucking
Wait,
amazing.
yeah,
As
that's
far as Extreme Levy goes, though,
mhm.
yeah, he's an okay villain. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, what do you think of him?
To be honest. All of these villains have this like all these villains don't like Mark, but really it's because they're blaming Mark for what's wrong in their life. Like
Mhm.
Angstorm Levy,
Gangster.
Angstrom, yeah.
Mhm.
He doesn't like Mark because he collected all the different versions of himself from different universes
Yeah.
to go into this like he said this electric Christmas tree to try and find the solution to all the world's problems. I don't know, he's trying to solve world peace or something. And then Mark was getting beat up by the Molar twins, so
Get jumped.
he decided to take the helmet off his head to like save
Mhm.
him. If I'm being honest, I know that like the Molar twins said you can't take that thing off, so don't take it off. That's what I would have said. And
That's what
if
they
there's
said.
one person getting beat up in your laboratory, I'd be like, I mean, oh
Yeah, ain't
well.
got nothing to do with
I
me.
mean,
Yeah,
his name is Invincible, so obviously he should
yeah.
be able to take a beat down. He'll be
He gonna
fine.
be alright.
He's
Yeah,
gonna
he
be
gonna be
good.
alright.
He'll be okay. You know, he'll call his friend Cecil, and Cecil will come pick him up. You don't have to worry about him. So,
Yeah.
Engstrom now being upset at Mark and saying that Mark made him that way. Mark made him into like looking to a terrible, you know, gelatinous villain. I roll my eyes at every villain that blames Mark for everything that is wrong in their life. Take some
Yeah.
responsibility for your actions or move on. Go to therapy, seek help immediately because Mark Grayson cannot help you. He's 19 years old. He would not be able to find South Dakota on a map. Okay? He's stupid. He is invincible and
Yeah,
he's
he's
very
kind of dumb.
sweet, but he's kind of dumb. He doesn't know how to set up an email account, which is ridiculous. Everybody knows how to do that unless you've never used a computer in your life.
That's
So
funny as hell.
I don't know why people keep blaming him for your problems. I get that he's a superhero. I get you feel like he's
Yeah.
at the center of all this destruction. This is not his
Hmm.
fault. You know, like just because he's there doesn't mean he's causing this. Maybe you
Yeah.
should think about the fact that we live in a world full of superheroes and supervillains, and things go
Yeah.
wrong, and normal people are
All the
collateral
time.
damage, and you can't find anyone else to blame, so you decide to blame the teeny bopper and the cute little costume. Like, you need to leave him alone.
Yo, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I fully agree. And I fully agree because we're watching it from Mark's perspective. But
Mm-hmm.
let me keep it $1 million with you. If it was me out there and I lost a loved one to collateral damage, I don't give a fuck if it was Mark's fault or not. It's fuck Mark till I die. I'm being, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's die Mark. Because what do you mean you are fighting your dad because he wanted to take over the world and now my brother is dead or my mom is dead or
Mm-hmm.
whatever? You know, uh, you got to die too. Sorry, eye for an eye. You know, somebody gotta, and that's something that the show also is really good on exploring is the fact that this guy gets blamed for every damn thing, and it makes sense because that's what powerless people do. You know, when they are faced with tragedy at the hands of the powerful, you know, they blame the person that they can. They blame whoever they can. You know, you can't blame the supervillains. The supervillains are gone or they're dead or they're whatever the case. You can blame whoever's left. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you can point the finger at whoever's left. We see that with Powerplex in season 3, which is really cool. You know, it's just how you probably would too. I can't even, you know what I'm saying? Like, you'd probably blame him too.
No.
Nah.
No, I wouldn't blame him. I wouldn't blame Mark.
Fair enough.
I wouldn't, cause Mark is so adorable. Like, I wouldn't blame Invincible, to be honest. Cause like
Mm-hmm.
Omni-Man, I feel like I'm just a naturally skeptic person. I feel like if you have a man flying around at the sky and he's powerful than even all the superheroes, it's like at some
Mm-hmm.
point or another he's gonna think he's a little too big. He's gonna get a little too big for his britches, you know. So
Agreed.
you always kind of side eye those people because they may act all nice and friendly to your face, but you don't know what's going on up in there. You know,
Mm-hmm. That's true.
yeah. And I do think that for season 2, it's interesting to watch Mark grapple with his PTSD. You know, obviously from his encounter with his dad in season 1, and
Yeah.
just seeing him just deal with the emotional aftermath of everything and him having to deal with like his Viltruma heritage. It's really tough because throughout the whole season, he keeps saying, I'm not my dad. I'm not my dad.
Yeah.
And people are telling him, like, you're not like your dad. You're not like your dad. And I get it and I understand, like, that is meant to soothe him. That's meant to comfort him. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like him being upset and him being angry is a reflection of his father. His father is unreasonable and he has this like colonizer mindset. Mark is an
Yeah.
18-year-old kid who gets mad. It's okay to be mad, it's okay to be upset, it's okay to have feelings, it's okay for you to feel
Yeah.
disappointed because the man you knew all your life as your father turned out to be a villain. You're
Yeah.
allowed to feel like you were wronged in this way. And for him to
Yeah.
somehow take upon the burden and the sins of his father is completely unfair because that's not yours to take. It's not your blame. It's not your fault he
Mhm.
held your face up and used you as a cannon to split those people apart. You literally
Yeah.
could do nothing about that.
About it. Yeah.
Like, if you could
That's
have done
true.
something, then you would have done something. You know,
He did. I mean, he fought. He fought till he almost died.
I
You
mean,
know.
he did his
Yeah.
darndest.
He did his best. He did. He
Mm,
dead ass did. Boy, he
mm,
was on the verge of death. You
mm.
know. And I agree. You know, his journey thus far is so sad because he we all know he doesn't have to, like, it's not his sins to bear, but ultimately, like, that's what heroes do, right? They put the world on their shoulders so that, other people don't have to. uh Nobody else can hang with the Viltrumites if they come back. Nobody else can hang with Omni-Man if he decides to spin the block. That is Mark's responsibility, and it's an unfair responsibility. It's something that has been thrust upon him unfairly. But he recognizes that fuck it, like, he has to do it
Yeah.
anyways, and that's what makes him such a compelling hero. Is he still tries to find space to be a human being on top of being a Viltrumite, and kind of like Spider-Man, again, to my point, it's those two things are always in conflict. There's never a point where he can do both until obviously he ends up dating another superhero, so he doesn't have to like be super afraid that her life is always in danger. But that's besides the point. But yeah, he don't have to, but he does, and I commend him for it, because if there was a character that existed like that in real life who almost died fighting his evil psychotic father, I would want him to, selfishly, I admit, but I wouldn't want him to just give up. I would be like, lock the fuck in, bro, because if your
Yes.
dad come back, you got to handle that, bro. I promise.
Yes. Yes. Like
For
your
all of
dad
our
comes
sake.
back comes down from the sky. We're calling you.
Yeah, hey, stay ready, bro. You
Please.
don't get to take a break on this one.
Exactly.
You
So
know.
there are a lot of things that happened in season two that were basically like a continuation of what happened in season one.
Mhm.
Like I mentioned before, there is Titan. I think Titan does to come into play really into like season three.
Three, yeah,
Yeah.
he's like at the end of season two,
Yeah,
weirdly
yeah,
enough.
yeah. End of season two. But there is the continuation of like what happened on Mars in finding out that Shapesmith is actually like a Martian and them
Oh
having to like
yeah,
find the Sequids.
I forgot about the Sequids part. Yeah, there's so many villains in this goddamn story. I keep forgetting. Damn, Sequids. Yeah.
Yes. The Sequids and then Alan the alien who
Hmm.
is Mark's friend and, was attacked by the Vultramites after his meeting with the Coalition. Thankfully, he didn't reveal anything about Mark or Nolan, but it was revealed that on Alan's planet, there is a Vultramite there who rebelled against the Empire. Thus, he has a plan for the Empire, which I'm very happy. Also, I'm very excited about because I actually do like Alan as a side
Yeah.
character. I think he's a lot of fun. I would like to see
Yeah.
more of Alan. If we can get Alan a little special or a little spin
Hmm.
off, that would be
Yeah.
appreciated because Alan seems very nice and he's very jovial and Mark is going through a lot right now and we needed some
Yeah.
breaks between season two, so I'm glad that they put Alan in a little bit more because like
Yeah.
it
Yeah. If you if it makes you feel better, Alan does become much more important to the story as it unfolds, and so we do get to see a lot more of him, especially as he interacts with Mark. So, yeah, you'll have a great time with Alan.
that's awesome. And with also Debbie, of course her having to deal with the fact that her husband basically
Yeah,
called her a pet on live TV.
fucked up, dude.
It's not right. It's not fair either because like all she
Yeah.
did, she stood by him. And that's the thing.
Hmm.
Oof. That's the thing. She was by his side. She held him up. She supported him. She loved him.
Hmm.
And he was out here, you know, annihilating planets, killing
Hmm.
people on a massive level. And
Yeah.
now she is just kind of stuck in the aftermath because the thing that sucks the most is that she can't really talk to people about what
Yeah.
happened because everyone is so sad over what happened in Chicago. Everyone has their lives are devastated, torn apart, and like they're going through so much. And so is Debbie, but it's not like she could find sympathy from anybody because no one wants to be sympathetic towards her because that was your husband. You should have known he was evil. You should have known he was terrible. You should have known that he was going to do something like that. Like, how could you not know? And it was easy
Hmm.
not to know because he's a liar. He deceived her.
Yeah, yeah, he did, and he was very good. He was incredible at it. But I do say there were some red flags, and I'm not. This isn't me
Yeah,
blaming Debbie at all, but
there
I,
are
I
some red flags.
remember how she talks about the very first time they met. Like she recalls the story of the very first time they met, and that he, expected her to like bow down to him after he saved her from a building or some shit like that. Um, and I'm thinking in my head, that's kind of crazy.
That's kind of
Yeah,
strange.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I don't think a good
Mm.
guy would expect that. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? But I understand it. You know, human beings, we're complex. We're not, you know, we are not walking supercomputers that assess every situation logically and come up with the most perfect, response. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so Debbie was fooled. Debbie was manipulated. Debbie was gaslit. You know, and she is more of a victim in all this than I would even say Mark himself, because I would rather get beat to near death than have the love of my life for 20 years, who we raised a child with, call me a pet on fucking national TV. That would crush me. That would crush me. And it's really interesting because the difference between Debbie from the comics and Debbie from the show is night and day.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie from the show, or from the comics, the way Robert Kirkman, and I made a video about this not long ago. As much as I love the Invincible storyline, Robert Kirkman writes women so terribly, so terribly, so it's so bad. Debbie ends up being like not even a character in the books. She is a side character. She has no agency, and she becomes an alcoholic as
Oh.
a result of. And the alcoholic, like, her struggle with alcoholism isn't played for sympathy, isn't like actually nuanced and complex. It's just, oh, she's the sad mom that became an alcoholic after her husband left her,
Mm-hmm.
trope. So that was one of the things I was the most happy to see, was just how much more agency, how much more layer, how much more depth they gave Debbie and her reaction to everything that, Nolan did, because it's infinitely better than the comics.
Yeah. I'm very glad, because I think that you also made a video about Amber, saying that Amber was worse than the comics, and I did want to
Yes.
touch on Amber also. But I love that whenever, like, that seems to be happening. That happened with the boys as well. With
Hmm.
his name isn't Soldier Boy, but the character that Justin Ackles plays in the boys in season 2, there was like there was a part of his backstory that was a little touchy, when people
Hmm.
found out that he was casted. They found out the character he was casted as, like, Supernatural fans were quick with the Google, and they revealed parts about his backstory that was, ooh, yikes.
Uh,
you know
yeah,
I'm not going to get
yeah,
into it, but essentially something happened to his backstory that's really gross and felt very unnecessary. And it was my hope that they didn't include it in the show, and they didn't really include it that much, thank goodness.
hmm,
And I'm always appreciative when, showrunners or creators are looking at something that they're adapting, and they look at the source material, and you're really studying the source material, and you're like, now, does this need to be in the show, or is this something we
yeah,
can improve upon?
yeah.
Because
Does this work?
yeah, I appreciate that more, especially with, like, Amber's character, because I I watched your video, not show. I watched your video about Amber a little while ago, so it may be a little fuzzy in my mind from the
Hmm.
details, but basically when Amber was introduced as a character in Invincible, of course the fans were upset because Amber in the comics is a white blonde lady, and
Yep.
she is casted as a black woman, and Zazie Beetz voices her. And Zazie does a really good job of voicing Amber as well.
Yeah.
And season 1, Amber
Hmm.
is upset with Mark because they start hanging out, they start dating, and he reveals to her that he is invincible. And she's like, I know, I've known the whole time. And people are like, well,
Hmm.
why are you mad? Because he finally told you, and that's why he was missing out. And she wasn't upset because, like, she didn't know, or like, she was basically upset because, like,
Just
he was
keeping
hiding
secrets.
things. Yeah, he was keeping
Yeah.
secrets from her. And going into
Hmm.
season 2, really going to season 2, I was kind of like nervous because
Hmm.
sometimes when, creators find out that their fans don't like a certain character, they like to sideline that character
Yep.
or kill
Hmm.
them. So,
Hmm.
going into season 2, I'm thinking like, oh no,
You're
the Viltrumites
scared.
may come back. I'm like, please let Amber survive at least 3 episodes. Like, don't go too
Hmm.
fast. Let's not jump the gun, guys. Let's take our time with it. You know what I mean? So,
No.
thankfully, she survived because I
Thankfully.
truly did think that she was going to die. But,
Yeah.
thankfully
Yeah.
she lived, and, they just broke up, which is
She made
sad.
it out
But
that time. I was so happy to see her. I wasn't even sad to me because I was like, girl, you ain't got no business being with that. When that episode happened, I'll tell you, I think one of my favorite episodes of the entire series, where I felt true fear. Like, the show is so good at invoking like fear out of
mm,
like us when it comes to portraying the Viltrumites. When Anissa, I think, grabs the back of her head and it's like, I'm going to kill her if you. I
Yes.
was fucking shaking. I
Yes.
was like, bro, oh my God. I'd never seen no shit like that before. That's
Yeah.
why I love the show so much, because they're doing things they didn't do in the comics. And so there are still moments where I can be surprised. There's still moments where I can be, shocked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, as soon as I saw that, I was like, leave them in yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't the life for you. You are a human being. You have goals and aspirations. You will die if you keep hanging around this motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I was happy when they broke up. And, they did it well. They did it really, really well. Because, like I said, in the comics, Amber is really just a placeholder until he gets with Eve. So she's
Mm-hmm.
not really a person. But I hope we see more of her in the comics. You don't really after she leaves, after her and Mark break up. I really hope to see more of Amber. I think she grounds the story in a very real way.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the other characters are in Mark's life are, super people. And so, I loved seeing the sort of human perspective that she brought to the normal person perspective that she brought to the series. So yeah, I hope to see her again.
Yeah, because in season one you have like Adam, Eve, you have Mark, and you have Amber. His
Mhm.
friends, and then season two you get a bit of William, you get Adam, Eve, and Amber, and it's clear like as the show continues on, there are less and less
Yeah,
interactions with him and like William and his other friends, which I did. It was a bit sad to me because it's very clear that Mark needs to talk to somebody other than his mom and his girlfriend. Like,
big
please,
facts,
he need,
100%.
he needs to call somebody else to like vent
Yeah,
out his feelings to. Which he hangs out with William every now and again. But you are right that like I think Amber is really good for him to still hang out with because TV shows have a very, 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 very bad trend of like the disposable black girlfriend trope. It
yes,
happened
100%.
in it happened in Friends, it happened in The Good Place. Like, you
Hmm.
know, there's a black girlfriend there for whatever reason, and then next thing you know, break up with her, you never see her again. She's gone.
Wait, I'm trying to remember who was it in the Good Place. Oh, dude, it's
It
goodness.
was
Oh,
what
jeez.
Kimberly Howell Baptiste, who was playing Chidi's girlfriend. Yeah,
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
yeah,
Very
she was
shitty to have seen
Simone.
that.
Yeah.
I remember that. Very big bummer.
I'm not
To
gonna
this day.
lie. I love The Good Place, but I don't ship Chidi and Eleanor together. Like, I
Really?
don't see it. I don't
Really?
see it.
That's a hot take. That's a very hot take.
It's crazy because like I've seen William
Mhm.
Hart, Jackson Harper, and like many other things. He's a very charismatic actor.
He is. He's
He.
incredible.
See, I think I saw him in, like Modern Love where he was dating I think Jessica Jones, and
Yeah.
that was very sweet. But like I just don't see it with the two of them. You know.
Really? That's nuts. I thought their chemistry was incredible. I thought I forgot the actress's name that plays Eleanor. I thought she was beautiful. I thought um Chidi
Kristen
was
Bell.
Kristen Bell.
Hmm.
Yeah. I damn, it's crazy that you didn't ship it. You are one of fucking five people on Earth that didn't ship them. But that's fair. I felt that. I felt that.
Yeah, and I did like Amber and Mark together because
Yeah.
you are right. She did ground him because sometimes he needed somebody to snap him back into reality.
Yeah.
Let him know
Yeah. Yeah.
like that he needs to
Mhm.
be a little bit of a realist. And oh my gosh, I was gonna say something. Um, it was a hard blow to Blasian Love, but you know what? You guys,
Yeah.
you will find your next ship
Yeah,
canon. I
dude. Damn,
promise.
we lost. We lost again.
Don't worry, Blasia. You will rise again.
Yeah, facts. Yeah, and then we just got Wasian love. That's the one we always get. We are always getting Wasian love. I
Uh,
didn't. It's funny because I didn't care much for Eve in the comics,
mm,
and I was hoping that I would care for her, like I would like her more in the series, and I'm afraid I didn't. I actually liked Amber more. I really did. It's not to say I ship her more with Mark than Eve. I
mm,
just like her as a character more. I thought she had a bit more personality. I thought she was a little bit more interesting.
yeah.
But really the best female character in the show is undoubtedly Debbie. I
Yeah.
love Debbie so much. She's just so well written, such a great
Yes.
character.
I like Debbie
So,
too because she's not just the mom.
you're right. She's so much more than that.
I
Yeah,
love that, like, we get to see her struggling. There was that one point where Mark was on the bug planet, or wherever he
hmm
was for so long. Yeah, the bug planet. And she is walking
yeah,
back from the support group, which, like, I was so happy she found the support group. And she was talking to that guy. I was like, oh my gosh, she's finally
yeah.
going to find a friend. And then she tells him about her
hmm
husband. And I know that she was sad, and I know she was in a bad place, and I know she wanted to open up, and she wanted to connect. But in the back of my head, I was like, Debbie, shut your mouth, girl. Like, I know you want to make a friend, but like, now it's not the time. You just met this guy. You know, he just told you that his wife was a guardian of
Yeah,
the globe.
yeah.
Okay,
You tweaked. You
like
tweaked. Yeah,
you, we went
you
way
messed
too
up.
far. Yeah, and when she was walking home barefoot, I was like, somebody get Debbie
That
some
poor woman.
shoes.
That poor woman been through
Somebody
so.
call Debbie. Where is Olga? Where is
Uh,
Olga? Where are her friends?
oh, that's right. She moved back to Russia. I forgot. Her
Mm-hmm.
son. Yeah, damn. She lost all her friends in the superhero community. Yeah, I love the episodes about Debbie.
Mm-hmm.
Because I empathize with her so much because I think when I said she was one of the most tragic characters, I meant it. I really can't imagine like hearing that from Nolan and having him just fuck off and then
Mm-hmm.
leaving you here to deal with the fact that he almost murdered your child. He called you a pet. He murdered hundreds of people, innocent people, and here you are, and you have your son who has his own life, who's doing
Mm-hmm.
his own thing, so you don't really have a support system. You're still supposed to mother that son. Man, damn,
Mm-hmm.
wicked stuff. It really is.
Yeah. Speaking of the sun, I don't know why Mark went to college when you are a superhero. Going to college when you're a normal person is hard.
Hey
It's
man, you gotta get your
tough.
education. You gotta get your education.
No, he doesn't. He's invincible. He doesn't need a degree. They just need
You
to
just
pay
called him
him.
dumb though. So which one is it? Is
Yeah,
he
he
is
is
he
dumb. He is
do you want him
stupid,
to
but
get
he's
smarter though?
invincible.
He's
He's
invincible.
invincible, not intelligent. There's a
Fair enough.
difference, you
So
know?
if you had his powers, no school for you.
No, absolutely not. I dropped out of college to begin with. I don't have a
But I don't
degree.
even have powers, and I
I
did
dropped out
this.
of college. I'm speaking from experience. College is hard. You know,
Nah,
like
facts. It's not
if
sweet.
I had powers, best believe I'm getting my GED and I'm getting in that gym. All right,
Mm.
I'm going
I'm
to
giving you
work.
that
I'm
shit.
pumping iron. Okay, y'all gonna see me
Nah,
kissing
facts.
babies, shaking
Yeah.
hands. All
Nah,
right,
facts. I
that
couldn't agree more.
that's what I'm gonna be doing. I'm not spending my time learning biology.
I would find some way to monetize my superpowers so I can be rich.
Absolutely, I'm making money. Absolutely
Mm-hmm.
making money. I'm not going through all this trauma for free.
Yeah, I'm getting a bag. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
getting a bag.
exactly. See, so we need to talk about a benefits package. Okay.
No, because is he paying them?
No, he's
That's really what I
not.
need to
They're
know.
not making any money.
The Guardians of the Globe not making no bread?
None.
That's
None.
crazy. They doing free labor
Mm.
and it's life
Life and
threatening?
death.
No, thank you.
Yes.
Couldn't be me. All due respect.
Listen, not on my best day. Not on your worst day. Not a chance. Not even if Hell
Yeah.
freezes over. Not
hmm
ever.
that's not, bro. They make like, I mean, Cecil, he had their budget is like trillions of dollars, and he ain't even trying to slide him no bread.
That's because the
Cheap ass.
budget is put towards rebuilding the buildings they all mess up during the
Every
battles.
episode.
The infrastructure
Mhm.
in that city, terrible.
Terrible.
You can only get
It's
them roads
funny.
fixed up if they drive a person into the road.
And it's crazy because they go through like 3 9/11 events a week. like,
Oh my gosh, you're
like,
not wrong.
they really do, and like they must just be cool with it by now. Like, there's no way this isn't just
Oh
normal
my
to them.
gosh. Everybody's getting a construction job because no one's ever out of work.
Oh yeah, the construction guys probably run the city.
Yeah,
They probably own the city.
they're making big bucks. Definitely,
hmm
definitely. Yes. So I did want to touch on Amber and Adam Eve because I
hmm
feel like Mark moved on a little too fast after Amber, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest. I know that
hmm
he liked Adam Eve while he liked Amber in season one, and then he started dating Amber. You know, they
Yeah.
like kissed and made up, and I'm glad for that. I'm happy for that. But I
Yeah.
feel like him starting to date Adam Eve was just like a little too fast because you just got out of a relationship. We're
hmm
still dealing with our trauma. We're still processing things.
Still
Jumping into a new
processing.
relationship is not the smartest thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but maybe like don't get a girlfriend right now when you have to worry
Just
about the
yeah,
fact that
yeah,
like there's an alien race that's gonna come and kill you. Like,
yeah.
bruh, you
Maybe
should,
slow down a bit.
yeah, take a breath, take a break. You know what I
He wasn't
mean?
trying to do that. He
Yeah.
wasn't trying to do that. Yeah, I agree. I agree. In the it's so much faster in the comics. Like he literally like he talks to her that like we should break up, and I'm gonna go with Amber, and I'm gonna go with Eve. But yeah, I like how they did it though in the comics. I mean, in the show, even though I do feel like it was too quick, I like how they did it in the sense that like Amber wasn't sidelined. She still got her, she still got to. Said she was found somebody else.
Mm.
Very cool, very nice, good for her. Like they both moved on, and I like that because it doesn't frame it as in like oh I dumped Amber and then went with Eve and that's the end of it. It's like okay, we both tried to make it work. It didn't, and we both found other people that are more in line with the type of lifestyle that we live and the type of our identities, and we both wish the best for each other. Like it felt more realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I will say my one critique for the Amber and Mark relationship is that it didn't feel that it didn't feel that strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like I couldn't be. They didn't feel like they were in love. It didn't feel like it just felt like a little fling. Something
Mm-hmm.
slight.
Yeah.
That's why it didn't bother me that he moved on quick because I was like, yeah, I wasn't really that locked in, anyways. If I'm being real.
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like near the end, where you saw the fraying of the relationship, and you saw that it
Yeah,
was possible they were gonna break up. That's when I was like, oh,
yeah.
this kind of hurts. But then again, that's like your first heartbreak. Like
Hmm.
your first relationship from high school to college. Like you think, oh,
Yeah.
it's us against the world. We can take on anything, and it's like not anything, girl.
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
Not
Like
anything.
no. And when he was talking to his mom and he asked his mom, like, how did you manage dating dad? Like,
No.
how did you guys get together? And that's immediately in my head, I was like, oh, we are in
Mhm.
trouble. We are in
Yeah.
dangerous territory right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. The relationship drama on this show is damn near CW level. Like I gotta
Oh
respect
my God.
it.
It's
I
crazy to
gotta give
me.
respect.
Because, like, I'm watching the show and I'm like, y'all are superheroes. Do we really? Is it dating?
Yeah.
Is dating the thing we need to
Yeah.
be worried about?
Yeah. Like, come on now. You ain't got anything better to do with your time than date. Man, you got
I'm,
problems to solve, bro.
yeah. Like, not gonna lie, season one, when it was Adam, Eve, Rex, and Kate, that was
Hmm.
spicy. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
snap.
that was some real drama. That was some real drama.
When that
I haven't
happened,
seen it since.
go ahead.
I haven't seen drama of that level in the show since. What I'm saying? When he caught them doing their thing, I said, okay, this is what we watching. Yeah, I need more of that, bro. And they never give us more.
When that happened, I was like, ooh, okay, we're getting spicy here. And then Kate and the Immortal happened. I was like, now, Immortal, you grown
Oh
man, you know that.
man,
Not you.
Kate was a teenager.
Essentially,
She was
yes.
she was on because she was on the teen team, right? I have
Yeah,
to assume that like she couldn't have been older than like 18, 19, 20
she's
at the
young.
most. She was a youth, bro, a kid,
He's
like
thousands of years old or
comparatively.
something.
Thousands of years old. And like I get it when you're that old, you know, everybody is like a kid to you, but like you could at least try to go for somebody like 25, 28,
Yeah.
29, 30. You're physically like you look 45. You know what I mean? Like you could have probably gone for at least a 35-year-old woman and nobody would have batted an eye. But you chose the superhero that Kate was famous for being on a team called the Team Team. You
Hmm.
fucking creep. I hate Immortal. I'm sorry. I hate him so much.
I'm not gonna lie, like it's so clear that Immortal is like Omni-Man's kind of like replacement in a way,
Yeah.
like that's why they put him on the team. Like when they brought on Omni-Man and like Immortal's already on the team, like it's clear he was kind of threatened by him. But like I feel like Immortal dating Kate, it's like a workplace romance I'm never a fan of. I'm gonna
Mm,
be honest, I'm never a fan of because it's always gonna be messy. It's always going to be a little
Agreed.
weird. It's always going to be a little awkward. And also, like, sir, with the way that you look, you could bag anybody. You know,
Yeah.
you act like you act like you're not ugly.
You're a superhero too. That's already like plus 12 points. You know what I'm saying? Like you're like that. You can get anyone.
Literally, save a woman from a burning house. Give her your number. You found your
That's it.
wife.
That's it,
That's
bro.
literally all you got to do. And
And he's bagged hundreds of women in his thousands of year lifestyle. So I know he got riz like that. But my question is, were they all teenagers? Like, are they? You know what I mean? Like, is that your type? You fucking freak.
okay. All right. We have to move on because I do want to talk
Yeah.
about of course we have to talk about, the reappearance of Omni-Man on that
Yes.
bug planet because, the Seance
Another
dog
freak.
coming to see Mark was a little out of nowhere. It was like, "Oh, so
Hmm.
I mean, I honestly I was thinking in my head, I was like, "Oh, so you guys have characters in your universe that are fictional but could also be heroes. That's interesting." But no, it turns out it wasn't actually Seance dog. It was a bug.
It
Okay.
was a bug.
And also, this is why Mark is stupid. Because someone comes to you and they're like, my planet is in trouble. They're in danger. Billions are going to die. We can't do a background check. We can't call up Cecil and be like, hey,
Hey,
Cecil, have you heard of this planet before? Have you seen any
listen.
meteors in the area? Any weather
He got a
patterns? Like,
problem to solve immediately. You know what I'm saying? He Bob the
no,
Builder. Yeah, they say he got a problem, he gonna fix it. You know, we're not
no.
worried about no background checks or none of that.
We have
He's a
to,
hero.
no, we have to fact check things. We have to make sure. We got to double check.
You gotta
Because
double check.
Because if you don't, you end up going to a planet with someone that you don't know on a ship that you can't get off of, Mark. And immediately in
That's
my
true.
head, I was like, he's gonna die. He's flying to his
It's gonna
execution. He's so dumb. Like, we can't think before we jump or before we
you,
act.
this whole time you sound like Mark's older sister. Like you just watching the show, just like, damn, I thought I taught you better, Mark. Like, you're better than this.
Mark, you
You're
are.
really invested.
With great power comes great responsibility. You need to act. You need to
Yeah.
think before you act. Please.
Think, Mark, think. Like you're like,
Please.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He did the right thing though. It worked out in his favor. You can't say it didn't.
Did it work out in
I
his
mean,
favor?
yeah, I was about to say no. I mean, it did end up being a really sticky situation
Uh,
that he got into. He almost ended
sticky,
up
sticky,
dying.
sticky.
Yeah.
So Omni-Man is on that bug planet because after he pummeled his son into a pulp, he left because he was feeling bad and he was feeling remorseful and he was feeling guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So he went to this planet and he saved these people, and then they made him the emperor because they're a bunch of bug people. Of course, they're gonna make him the emperor. Like, what else were they gonna do? He
Mm-hmm.
saved them, and then he found a wife, of course, because whenever a man makes a mistake, you know what he finna do? Make a baby. Because
Make a
that's the
baby.
first thing you do to resolve
Hey.
your issues. Because the best
Mm-hmm.
way to get over your transgressions is to start over with some new people who don't know your past, don't know your past mistakes, don't know your patterns. They only see you for who you are now, and they just assume
Mm-hmm.
that you're a good person. And they take you at
Mm-hmm.
that point of who you are, not who you used to be, which is still who you are.
Preach. Read it for filth. Okay. You in there spitting. You tell us. Yeah.
I was just like watching him, and he's like, she's like, the lady comes out, and it's like, oh, you met my
Mm-hmm.
husband. I'm like, of course. He
Yeah.
met. How'd that happen? How'd that work?
Yeah.
How you make that baby?
Man, Omni-Man is a freak. I don't give a fuck.
And
When
he
I seen
literally
that
said
shit,
it.
I
He
was
said
like,
it in the
hell no.
finale. He was like, "What's another 17 years? I can make another kid."
And he did it too with a bug.
You think
What
I
a freaky
forgot?
guy.
You think I forgot what you said?
Yeah.
I
He didn't even
remember.
wait 17 years. He waited like 3 months. What a freak. Shit is
So,
nasty.
so now Mark has a brother by the name of Oliver, and Oliver is
Mm-hmm.
purple. Okay.
She is.
So, the Viltrumites find Omni-Man on this planet because he did not fulfill his duty as he was supposed to. And they come,
Yeah.
they take him down. Mark finally locks in and actually, like, does well in the fight for once in his life. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter. His dad is taken away to go to jail and be executed. And,
Mm-hmm.
the Viltrumites tell him, hey, you better get ready because we're coming for you. You better make that planet ready. I don't care if you don't want to do it. Your hesitation, your
You gotta
resistance,
do it.
it doesn't matter to us. That's
Yeah,
our
nobody
planet.
care.
We're going to conquer
Hmm.
it. If you do not conquer that planet for us, we're wiping everybody out. We're wiping you out too. Okay? You got me? Okay. And
So they
so,
told his ass.
and then his dad is gone, and now Mark is stuck with a little baby brother that he takes to his mom. Because of course the one thing that Debbie needs is the baby that her husband sired on a bug planet when he was supposed to
With
be dead.
with some bug bitch that he ain't even know. And he just met. You know what I'm saying? He cheating.
And
And he calling Debbie a pet,
oh my
but
god, with an
you out here
insect.
with insects? Nah, he's grimy. He's a grimy guy.
Disgusting.
Yeah, I think Debbie, and this is definitely one of those things where they couldn't change too much from the comics because it would just fundamentally alter the story. So you still get a little semblance of like depressed mom. She just needs
A
a baby.
baby.
You know what I mean? She just needs something to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a trope the relationship between Oliver and Debbie is built on in the comics. And like I said, Oliver is a very important character, so they couldn't get around it.
Mm-hmm.
But at least they gave Debbie so much more agency and depth in this show that it makes it like, okay, it's there. It's not. It doesn't just feel like a shameless version of that trope. It actually feels like real. It feels like it's got some weight to it.
Yeah, and also Debbie isn't the alcoholic mom who now
No,
has
she
a
isn't.
baby. She is not the mom who is grieving and sad, but you know what? Now she's a baby to raise because if she was an
Yeah,
alcoholic, I would be worried.
yeah.
We would be
It's so funny.
concerned.
In the comics, I think Oliver, kind of just fixes it, and then that's why I mean it. Like it's the trope. Like Oliver comes in and she's, suddenly good to go. Like
Mm,
she's a cool mom
all
all
better.
of a sudden. Yeah, fixed.
Hmm.
Uh, but Oliver's a weird character. I hate that kid.
Okay, we're not getting to Oliver yet. That's a strong stance to take on Oliver. Okay, because I haven't given
I
my
hate that
stance on
kid.
Oliver yet. So before we
Okay.
before we jump into Oliver, let's go into the finale and Angstrom Levy showing up where he is not welcome, and now pushing Mark to his limit because this is again what I was talking about before. These characters cannot take accountability for their actions, so they have to blame
Hmm.
Mark for the things that are wrong in their life. And I'm not even gonna lie, with the way that Engstrom was literally toying with Mark, playing
Yeah.
on his last nerve, like literally hurting, breaking his mom's arm, throwing his brother across the room, like he is a sack of potato, like he's nothing, like he's a
Yeah, it's
pillow
messed up.
and
Hmm.
literally like throwing Mark through dimension after dimension after dimension until finally like he just can't take enough. And Engstrom is like, I prepared for you. I got stronger. In the back of my head, I was like, not strong enough, sir. Not strong enough. You may be smarter than him, but you're not stronger than him. Mark is not stupid, but he is not weak. Like he's stupid,
No.
he's not weak. He is strong. He's half Viltrumite. There's a reason why they
Yeah.
call him for all the problems that are going on in that
Yeah.
Earth.
He's him
So
right now.
and it was so honestly, it was just annoying to me because it's like
Yeah.
he's the villain, he's the bad guy, and with villains. Sometimes I can sympathize if you're coming from like a good place, like if it makes sense why you're the bad guy. Like
Hmm.
recently I started rewatching My Hero Academia, and one of the villains in the show is by the name of Shigaraki. Have you watched My Hero Academia?
I am like 3 episodes in, so I don't know too
Okay,
much.
all right. Let me try another show. What's a villain that you relate to? I guess I should ask
Oh,
you.
I relate to. Oh man, you watch Naruto?
It's a long time. It's been a long time since I watched
Okay.
Naruto.
Let me think. What is a villain I relate to? Honestly, I relate to the villains that are like just the haters for the sake of hating. What's a good villain that just hates for the sake of it? I'm trying to think. Oh, please. Can you think of any villains that are just haters that are just, what I'm saying, they're just in it
Villains.
for the love of the game?
Villains that are just haters. Okay, since we were talking about Supernatural, let's pull someone from Supernatural.
Ooh, that's a
Um,
good one.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, okay, I'm thinking like Abaddon from
Yeah,
season 9, Supernatural.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would even go as far as to say and he's not much. He's not very much like he's not really like a hater for the love of the game. But if we are talking about supernatural villains, I relate the most to Crowley. You know
Oh
what I'm
yeah, yeah, yeah.
saying? I love my boy Crowley because he's not like the villainiest of all, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But he gonna. And one thing about Crowley, he gonna get his. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? He gonna take care of himself.
yeah.
So yeah, that's who. That's my
Mm-hmm.
pick.
Like with Crowley and Supernatural, I can see his side of the story and see why he is the way that he is. Like he's just a little sassy. You know, he's angry, he's
Mhm.
mad,
Yeah,
he's a
yeah,
bad guy, but he's not like that bad. And
yeah.
Engstrom, he's just he like you're whining, you're complaining, you're upset, and for what? For why? You have all
Listen,
this big brain energy. You could do something else with your time, with all
to
the
be
power
fair to
you
my
have.
boy, to be fair to him,
Let's not be
he
unfair. Let's not be fair.
I'm gonna be fair. I'm gonna be fair. I have to be fair.
Mm.
He, when he was undergoing the mind connection with all of his other selves, I think it broke his brain a little bit.
Mm.
And now he's like just fucking clinically insane.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where his hate comes from. So, you know, we have a situation where I know for a fact he ain't even really thinking about the logistics of why he hate, you know, Mark. It's just now it's just, and I think part of it also has to do with, I think how he was introduced, right? He was introduced in the universe, being from a universe, or like one of his variants was introduced being from the universe where Mark and Omni-Man actually teamed up, and Mark
Mm-hmm.
is like a fucking psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so, you know, all those collective memories of all those evil Marks just made him despise Mark because
Mm-hmm.
Mark, in pretty much every other dimension but this one, is the worst person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. You know what I'm saying? My man's, I get it. Can't be mad at him. Can't be mad at him.
I'm not gonna lie. When season 2 started and we were seeing Mark be like absolutely terrible, I was like, hold on. I literally had to check on Amazon Prime. I was like, this is season 2, episode 1. Okay. I'm not, I'd actually click episode 8 because I don't, what's going on? This can't be the first episode. Why is Mark acting like this? But, you know, of course
Yeah.
we're seeing like the different version of Mark, essentially.
Yeah.
And we're seeing, it makes sense, you know, your explanation makes sense that like, it's possible that Engstrom's memories are just so jumbled up in his head from all his other, you know, versions of himself being stuck in that big brain of his that
Hmm.
he cannot help but see Mark as the villain because all the other memories of his other selves that they have of Mark is of him being a villain, of him conquering Earth with his dad, alongside his dad, to the point where
Yeah.
like it's harrowing, it's chilling, and he is casual about
Yeah.
how awful he is in a way that like turns your stomach cold, like your blood
Yeah.
runs cold at it. It's like this is
Yeah.
not the cheerful, sweet, wonderful Mark that I know. I don't know who
Yeah.
you are, you know.
That was the scariest version of Mark I ever seen. He
Mm-hmm.
was like just like he was worse than his dad. I was like, shit. His dad didn't even seem to take pleasure in it like Mark did, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Just full like I'm enjoying this type vibes. That was crazy.
Yeah, and also seeing him kill like Adam Eve is like, oh gosh, this Mark is gone. Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah, snapping her neck was nothing.
that was rough. So
Hmm.
we of course come to the end of season 2 where Mark has completely he snapped. You know,
Yep.
he's mad. He pushed him to the edge. He snapped on that last nerve, and he decided to go off on Engstrom Levy. And in that when that happens in that scene, I hate to say it, I don't feel sorry for that man. I don't feel any kind of remorse because honestly, I was starting to get annoyed because I was
Yeah.
checking the time in the episode. I was like, we need to wrap this up right now. At this point, Invincible, you're doing a little too much. Like I understand we're trying to build a story and a plot and everything, but we need to.
You doing the most.
Can we please get to the point here?
Yeah.
Because if Debbie dies, I'm going to be upset. Like the amount of times I thought a woman was going to die in season 2, I was really like,
Yeah.
Robert
There's
Kirkman,
a
you about
lot
to
of
hear from
like
me.
there's a lot of violence against women in that season. Now that you mention it,
And the
it's kind of
boys too.
crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, and the boys too. Oh, and definitely in the boys. Now that's
Mm.
something else entirely. Mhm.
Yes. So it really does suck because like you know that Mark spent the whole season dealing with the psychological scars from what his dad did in Chicago, as everyone else
Mhm.
is. but he is struggling because he has this duty to be a hero, but he has this personal trauma from his dad completely decimating a city, and he doesn't want to be like his father, not at all. And
Mm-hmm.
he thinks that he kills Angstrom,
Langstrom.
and that is the first time he's taken a life. It's weighing heavily on him. It's really tough for him to deal with. And seeing like the Guardians of the Globe from the future come in at the exact time that happens and be like, so this is a portal to your home. So we really need
Yeah,
you to go home, Mark.
you got a free pass to
Please
get up out of here.
go home. Take your time and go home. And it's like, oh, and that's really when, I think that it comes full circle for me when I first watched season 2. In that moment when like the people from that planet came, from that reality came, the Guardians of the Globe.
Hmm.
That's when the first time I was watching it, I was like, oh, and I was like, are they from the reality where Mark snapped Eve's neck? And I was like, wait, no, that Eve is alive and she's not bald, so maybe
Yeah,
not yet, but
yeah.
possibly soon, or a different reality. But upon
Mhm.
the second rewatch, I was like, oh my gosh, because it's not even all the Guardians of the Globe that we know in this universe. So
Yeah,
it's
it's a
like some of them have
completely
died, some
different.
of them have been replaced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like, was that an alternate dimension or the future or both? Like,
I think it's supposed to be like an alternate dimension when it's an alternate dimension where Mark killed Angstrom and he stayed in the desert because like
mm,
he doesn't know where he is. So
mm,
eventually he finds some way to get back to where he lives, but he is
mm,
gone so far gone because you see him
uh,
like talking and muttering to himself, like trying
yeah,
to like soothe himself, but he's not okay.
yeah.
Like he's
That boy got
distraught.
trauma. That boy got trauma on
Mm,
trauma. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Trauma out the ass. That ass.
All right, so we're going into season 3, and we're talking about Mark and his evolving stance on morality. As
Mm,
he believes that he has killed someone for the first time, and how that affects him, and also Oliver, and what he's
yeah.
like, because Oliver, he and Mark are having a very similar storyline to what Mark and Nolan had in season 1, but it's
Mm,
different now because Mark, isn't as powerful as Nolan, but he is more powerful than Oliver. Well, I think Oliver may
yeah.
be more powerful than Mark, if we're being
Nah, I didn't.
honest.
Nah, not the way that Conquest had Oliver
Mm.
spinning. You remember?
I don't know if Oliver is more powerful than Mark, or it's just that Oliver isn't holding back.
Yeah, that's what I think, because Oliver's a kid and he's a little, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? He's not scared to put all his strength into an attack.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Mark has never done what to the Mauler twins, what Oliver did to him.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's different.
When that first happens, when okay, any conversation that Mark is having with Oliver and they're talking about like morality and like killing people, and then Oliver's like, I mean, if they're bad guys and we kill them, they're never gonna come back, right? And in the back of my mind, I'm
Mm.
like, I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah, he kind of spitting here. I'm not mad at it.
Like he's not that wrong, and I get that Mark is trying to lead him down the straight and narrow, the good path. He's trying to tell him
Yeah.
like you can't just kill people because they're bad. You have to consider like who they are, and like Debbie's also teaching him this as well, which is good.
Hmm.
In my personal opinion, obviously I wouldn't tell a child it's okay to kill somebody if they're a superhero. Of course not. But like, if
Yeah.
I were Mark, and I kept having people come at me when I'm trying to live my life, I'm not gonna lie, I probably wouldn't be as nice.
Yeah.
I
I agree.
I probably wouldn't be as nice, as understanding, as patient, because he really
Hmm.
had it for Cecil when Cecil was
Yeah.
doing some questionable things. And I get it. I understand you want to trust Cecil because he's the head of the CDA, but like at some point or another, we cannot live in the black and white of it all. Because I know
Yeah.
that Mark understands that there are consequences and you have to be prepared for every single scenario. But he still has this mindset of like, we need to do the right thing every single time. And you can't do the right thing every single time because if you're going up against people who do not care whether you live or die, you cannot hold back for when they're coming at you because you're staying in their way and they're going to try to achieve their goal by any means necessary. When people
Yeah.
live a life by any means necessary, that means that you don't matter. So you have to take that into account when you are going against them. So when Cecil says you can either be the good guy or you can be the guy who wins, like you really have to think about it. Like, do you want to be the good guy or do you want to live another
Yeah.
day?
you? That's why I'm saying my boy Cecil did nothing wrong. I love Cecil so much. I love how much depth they added to his character. Free him, because the whole time Mark is arguing with him. Oh, you brought the reaniman. Listen, bro, did they save your life or not? You know what I mean? A
Mm-hmm.
little thank you would suffice. Because if I remember correctly, you was just getting your ass beat, and we clutched it for you.
Mm.
So a little bit of respect would go a long way. And I love the position. I love how they explore the position that Cecil's in, because he's right. I don't even really consider him a bad guy, because he's like, you want to be a good guy or a person that saves the world. I
Mm-hmm.
don't even consider him to be a bad guy. I think he's still a good guy. He just makes some
Questionable.
hard decisions, some questionable decisions, but like
Mm.
you would too in his position if you are the sole person responsible for the safety of the planet, so responsible for organizing the defense of the planet, because that's what he does. He organizes. He's the one that has the plan shit.
Mm-hmm.
uh, so you would make, if you was in that chair, you would make some decisions that, what I'm saying, that you'd have to. And I think a lot of the fans failed to recognize that. We identify with Mark so much that we couldn't see that Cecil was just doing his fucking best.
Yeah. Because it's not like Cecil has been like this the whole time. Of course, we saw a little flashback where Cecil is not someone who's so pragmatic in the way that he is now.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, experience makes you that way because you learn from your experiences. And what you understand is that you can't always trust the people around you. Like from the very jump that he met Nolan, he didn't trust him.
Yeah, he
He
didn't.
knew
He knew
that
he was lying.
he knew he was a liar. Like that was ridiculous. Like, oh, you came to this planet to help save it. Yeah, right.
Hmm.
Sure, like I
Yeah.
believe you. Okay. Got
But
it.
he's like, shit, we're gonna have to just see what happens.
Because he's super powerful. Obviously, you
Yeah.
can use him as a tool, as an asset, and it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
he took out that bug thing for like, I might as well just use him for the time being. You
We
know?
might as well. Yeah, we
Yeah.
might as well see where the relationship goes. I think he knew he was lying about that, but over time grew to trust him, because for 20 years, the Omni-Man didn't break. He didn't break character.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for a while after, Cecil, I think, had a sneaking suspicion in the back of his head that Omni-Man was, lying
Glitching.
about some things,
Yeah.
but he didn't think he was this fucking crazy. I
Yeah.
don't think he was like world destroyingly type psycho.
That's true. That's true. And I do
Mhm.
want to talk about like Oliver because I think that it's clear that Oliver is just a kid and he's trying to be a kid and he grew up really fast. So I feel
Mhm.
like by the time we get to like season 4, he's going to be a little bit older, So
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Oliver because
Mhm.
um, I don't feel like Oliver is heading down a
Mhm.
bad path, so to speak. But I feel like
Yeah,
Oliver has a lot more of his father in him than Mark
yeah.
does.
And
You
Mark
know,
does for sure.
yeah, in a way where like he kind of understands the world that he lives in, and
Mhm.
when he's telling Mark like he, he did feel bad for killing the Muller
Mhm.
twins, but I don't feel like it was bad. Like he felt bad because it was a bad thing, but he felt bad because like people were mad at him, and he was like, I did something
Mhm.
wrong.
Yeah,
In that way of like a kid like does something bad, like they steal something, and it's like, oh, I was supposed to take it, but I wanted
yeah,
it.
yeah. Right,
Mm,
right. It's all that power in the mind of a child.
mm,
It's a scary sort of like concept. To have all that power and to be a literal kid and to be the type of kid that he is. Something that it didn't touch on in the show, which was kind of expanded on in the comics, is that because he's half Flaxen, he remembers everything from the moment he was born. So,
mm,
unlike human babies that don't have like functioning minds, he does. He did. He's everything he saw from the day he was born. He remembers, and so he's like just not a human kid. Like that. And I think that's where the conflict arises with Debbie and Mark. They're trying to raise him like a human child. That's not a human being.
mm,
That's not a, that is something else entirely. And so it requires them to meet him where he's at, and they do that. I
mm,
think they do that. Finally they're like, okay, we understand now that you're a little different, um, and that's okay. And I think that's why they were so. I was really racking my brain trying to understand why they were so cool with him murdering the Mauler twins, but they were. I was like, I realized they're just understanding that, like, bro, this ain't no human being, bro. He don't know how shit works around here.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? He thinks this is the way to go, and you gotta have patience with kids like that, or else you're just gonna make them worse.
yeah. And I'm really
Yeah.
glad that Debbie is like a source of comfort and
Yeah.
some kind of stability for
Hmm.
Oliver, because even though he remembers his mom, his actual mom, Debbie
Hmm.
is someone who is able to keep him grounded, and it's good that he has that in his life because
Yeah.
Oliver, I don't want to keep him on a tight leash, so to speak, but I feel like I do want to see what else happens with his character, and I am
Hmm.
interested to see how we move forward with Oliver, because
Yeah.
I do feel some type of way about like children being entered into a war because of how much anime we
Child
watch.
soldiers. Yeah.
Yes, child soldiers. Like, and as much as I want Oliver to just be a kid and be in the skate
Hmm.
park and color and eat
Yeah.
like ants on a log and live a
He's got a
regular life,
responsibility.
he has a responsibility, unfortunately, and he wants to take that
Unfortunately,
responsibility very seriously.
he wants that shit so bad, dude.
He does. He
Yeah.
does. And I think also with Cecil and him working with Sinclair, and
Mhm.
at the end of the season, we see that he's using the reanimin he's
Yeah.
making reanimate from the Invincible corpses, and
Yep.
possibly with
Conquest.
Conquest as a body. I know that
Yeah.
Mark is not going to be happy about it, but Mark, unfortunately, baby, you have to understand the situation we're in, and
Yeah. He doing what he got to do.
we must.
Listen, you've proven that you're easily killable. Okay, you've been struggling against this one Viltrumite, and there's more of them. Listen, we gotta have as many options as we can.
Yeah.
That's all it is. We have to have as many options as possible. Yeah. So it looks like he's using the reaniman, and I'm really interested to see what happens. With Conquest. Obviously, I know, but I'm very interested to see what they do with it.
Yeah, and I do think that Angstrom, Levy,
Hmm.
Levy,
Hmm.
bring in the Invincibles was interesting because throughout the season, you see him going to different parallel universes and talking to these marks, and I'm like, what is he doing? Like, I
Yeah.
was confused. I was like, what is he doing? Who is he talking to? Why is he
Yeah.
bothering these people? Leave him alone. And then he
Hmm.
shows up with the different Invincibles all around the world, and I'm like, oh, I peeped that
Yeah.
glimpse. It's when you
Yeah.
realize that he is having these Invincibles around the world, destroying this planet, so that every time people see Invincible, they immediately do not trust him. You are
Hmm.
a sick,
And
twisted
it's psychotic.
man. You are
Hmm.
diabolical. Angstrom, I'm tired of you.
Yeah,
I'm actually tired. And
he made Mark the face of like 25 9/11s, bro. That's a shitty situation,
it's
bro.
it's the worst situation you could possibly be in, because
Hmm.
all these marks are obviously dealing with like the loss of like their mom, of William, of Eve, like
Yeah.
I saw online that the mark with the mohawk apparently like lost his Eve, and he had a
Hmm.
harem of women that looked like Eve on that
Uh,
island. And I was like,
yes, 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 he does.
these comics are wild.
That's You're gonna see Mohawk Mark again,
Oh
and I'm very
Jesus,
excited for
yes.
when we do, because you'll get a little bit more on fucking psycho he is.
Oh my gosh. But
Yeah,
the last thing that happens in season 3 is Conquest showing
yeah.
up, and I also saw something online that Conquest was supposed to be a lot creepier than he was,
Hmm.
because in the comics he was really creepy and really weird. I
Yeah, he's
won't get
very
into
weird.
it,
Hmm.
but when he whispers into Mark's ear in a monologue talking about how lonely he is, I'm like, oh, Mark, you're gonna die. This
I
man's
was
telling
like,
you his deepest secret.
yeah,
It
I
was
was like,
so
oh,
weird and random, but at the same time, I was like, man, you finna die. He's telling you the deepest, darkest secret he's never told anybody.
anybody. Yeah, he knew that. I feel like this is like a routine he does where like all his victims, like he tells his life story just so because he knows they're not going to be alive to tell anybody. Yeah, Conquest is crazy. That was a crazy one.
I did love seeing Adam Eve kind of like basically her. This is not real, but her power awakening, like
Yeah.
her like coming into her own. That was amazing because I did think that she died. I
Hmm.
was very scared. I was worried. I was like, oh, we've done it
They
now.
faked us
They've
out.
teased me for too many seasons. They
They
said,
have.
you're going to see Eve all throughout this season and they're going to start dating. And guess what, guys? We're going to take her away from you. That's what I thought was going to happen. Thank goodness it did not.
Yeah,
But
thank God it didn't. But in facts, I even thought she almost. I thought they was like, I was like, damn, they killed her for real. Even watching the episode, I was like, okay, shit, they're serious. But no, her unlocking, I love that scene so much because it shows just how powerful Eve is. Like Eve at full power is damn near a god. Like she can do so much. It's so cool.
yeah. And I
Mhm.
do think that I understand why so many of the superheroes in the show like hold back on their powers just because of the extent of what they could do, the damage they can do. But at the same
Hmm.
time, I really wish more of the heroes like this is gonna seem mean, but y'all need to stop doing things that don't matter, like the dating, hanging out, like
So
all
they
this.
can't be human beings. They can't be regular people. All
I'm
right,
sorry,
that's how
there's
you
too
feel.
much going on for y'all to want to like
That's
want.
how you feel.
I
That's crazy.
honestly like, yeah, kind of, because like when
Mm-hmm.
Mark actually like took out Conquest, like he took him out. It was like, so
Mm-hmm.
we've been holding this back this whole time, and you've been
Yeah,
letting yourself get beat into the ground by
and get beat.
every single villain of the week.
Hmm. Ain't
Mark,
that a ain't that about a B word?
aren't you embarrassed?
Yeah, that would be.
I feel
That
like
would be good.
Mark is. You're right. He is kind of like our Spider-Man, this generation Spider-Man in a way, but it's different because like Mark is finally kind of coming around to the point where he's like, I will need to kill somebody. Like at this
Hmm.
point, I can't be. We can't be nice anymore. No more Mr.
Yeah,
Nice Guy. He's gone now. Okay,
facts.
he's taking too many beatdowns. You beat him out of me. At this point, I'm
Hmm.
tired. I've lost my patience. That last
Yeah.
guy who's acting like a power cord because he
Mhm.
killed his son and daughter, which was awful to watch,
I
and
know,
then blamed
terrible.
me. That, by the way, power leveler, delusional,
Powerplex.
absolutely powerplex.
Yeah, bro, Mark has actually the most delusional villains of like any superhero I've ever seen. Just straight nut jobs, bro. Just
Is there no therapy here?
I don't
Nobody
know.
has talk space.
I don't know.
Like,
They ain't got they brains be fried. And can you blame them? Do you see the shit that be happening on their world? I don't know if I'd be sane in the Invincible universe. I would not be actually. I know I wouldn't be.
listen, I see what's happening in our world, and
And I'm already
I
going
can.
insane.
I mean, I'm trying to keep a level head as it is.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
I mean, I
Yeah,
don't blame him, but like, we can have we need to have some restraint. We need to have some
yeah.
decorum. You know.
Killing your own wife and child is crazy. That's insane.
I did want to ask you,
Hmm.
as we're wrapping up, I feel
Yeah.
like Supernatural. No, how do I say Supernatural? Oh my gosh. Okay,
Again.
Invincible. So
Yeah.
for me personally, I feel like Invincible stands out in terms of superhero shows because of its realism, the more
Mhm.
ambiguities, obviously complex characters and all that stuff. Um, what do you feel like really makes Invincible stand out as a show? Because I feel like when you look at other shows like The Boys, you look at Young
Mhm.
Justice, or maybe you like think about like shonen anime, like obviously
Yeah.
Naruto, Avatar: Last Airbender. What do you feel like
Yeah.
makes Invincible stand
Invincible.
out as a superhero show?
I think it's a couple things. I think for one, the like the characters are really interesting. I think what invested me in the comic books when I read them as a kid, and it's such a funny story. I didn't read comics. I was at the library with my mom, and there was the comic book section, and it just happened to be Invincible Volume One. I liked the cover, so I started reading it. Just out of boredom, and we get to a part where his dad's a superhero. All of a sudden, he kills his version of the Justice League. Okay, now I'm locked in. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? Now I'm like, this is good. So I think the premise is just really, really cool. And more than that, I think as the story goes on, the characters that we are introduced to are written well, even in the comic books, even though that the women are written terribly. These are really interesting characters, and these are really interesting conflicts. I think the staple of a story is how well you write the conflicts. That's what decides whether or not that story is good. And
Mm-hmm.
I think Invincible's conflicts, it's physical conflicts, it's emotional conflicts, thematic, how it explores. I think it's just really good. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'm trying to restrain myself from reading the comics because I low-key want to be surprised for season four. I don't want to know what
Fair enough.
happens because I'm someone who likes to read anime and watch anime, read manga
For manga.
and watch anime. So oftentimes I spoil things for myself. So now I'm trying to like not read the Invincible comics. I'm just gonna watch the show. I'm gonna be patient and wait for the animators to finish their job. But I already kind of have an idea of what's going to happen in season 4.
Mhm.
I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but I'm very excited for season 4. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
So, guys, we're going to wrap it up from here. Real quick, we're going to do watch list. And I just want to say the one thing I'm excited to watch is Opus, which is new Ayo Edebiri A24 film. Some people
Uh-huh.
have said that it's not great. I don't care what you think. I'm still going to watch
I
that show.
I will watch
I will
anything
watch it
IMDb.
regardless.
I
Yes.
felt that. Me, this is just one, I have a million, but one that's been stuck in my mind lately is F1 starring Brad Pitt and Damson Idris. So excited for I love racing movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same director as Top Gun Maverick. It's Damson Idris. Come on now. Come on now. So yeah, that's highly it comes out in June something, so put it on your calendar. And yeah, I think it's gonna be really good.
Awesome. Well, Destructo, I want to thank you so much for coming on the pod. Where can people find you?
On the corner of 45th and Vernon,
Funny.
selling rock. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, you can find me largely on TikTok. That's where I'm most active at DestructoJuugo. I also have a YouTube channel where I do long form analysis of films and TV show, DestructoJuugo. And yeah, you can find me pretty much on any social media with the same handle. But I really recommend you check out the YouTube and check out the TikTok first.
Awesome. Guys,
Mm.
go ahead and check out Destructo. All his links will be down in the description down below. Don't forget to follow us on all our socials. Those links will be down in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to tell your friends and family about your new favorite podcast. I've been meaning to watch that. I will see you guys next week with a new topic, new guests like we do every single week.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. Bye.